Hey you all, welcome to Just a Shinobi. Today, we dive into an exciting what-if scenario. What if godlike Naruto owned multiple Kage Genkai? If you enjoy this, hit subscribe for more thrilling content. Explore my other videos, share with friends, enjoy them too, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. It motivates me. Let's not waste any time. Jump into today's what if. Chapter 1. In the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen sat with a frowned scowl on his face, looking at the sleeping form of a 12-year-old Naruto Uzumaki. The young boy had been beaten unconscious by villagers earlier that night and had been rescued by a passing academy student, Anko Mitarashi, who had seen the end of it happen and had broken the fight up, capturing the attackers with the help of her summons, all of who are now awaiting interrogation by Ibiki, head of the T&I division, torture and intelligence. Due to the boy's circumstances, Naruto's injuries had to be treated in his office. 15% of the hospital staff were volunteering citizens doing the smaller tasks around the building, but not one of them would have passed up the opportunity to try to make Naruto's short stay even shorter by trying to end his life. This had happened several times in the past, and Hiruzen had given up sending him there and had one of his Anbu with the most medical experience treat him instead. The young Enko stood beside the elderly Hokage, looking down at the still sleeping Naruto as she thought. What could someone so young have done to earn such a beating? I've had my fair share of attempts, but that was just beyond brutal. She'd seen Naruto around and sure, the kid pulled some pranks every now and then, but nothing to warrant this kind of brutality. That was something else. Naruto's young form was completely bloody, his orange tracksuit ripped, his chest slashed, his nose broken, a bust lip, black and swollen eyes, swollen jaw, and numerous other injuries. There was an Anbu with long purple hair in front of them tending to the boy's wounds. While most healed themselves, given who he was, anything broken had to be placed before it healed wrong, and the extra help didn't hurt. Although the Anbu wore a mask, Anko knew who it was. Nico Ni-chan, will he be alright? The masked Anbu nodded. He'll be fine, Anko-chan. Naruto-kun always heals fast. Anko heard the always comment and she flinched. Exactly. How many times has he been beaten like this? She asked, not sure if she actually wanted an answer. He was so badly injured, she didn't want to think about someone having to go through something like that multiple times. There was silence for a few minutes before Hiruzen spoke. He's here for treatment almost 3 times a week if not more, and this is only the first this week. It's regrettable, but it's been like this for the whole of his young life. The statement shocked Anko to her core. What the hell, he's been beaten like this multiple times a week, but that just doesn't make sense. What possible reason could those bastards have for doing this to him? He's just a kid. Hiruzen scowled. Ignorant reasons. That's why. The villagers don't know what they're doing. They blame Naruto-kun for things not of his own doing. So much so that he's even adopted to using a mask over the years to hide the pain. Most see him as a hyperactive happy boy who just wants to be noticed, when in reality it's just a mask he wears. Those pranks he pulls are all an act. I check up on Naruto-kun regularly. Most nights I do so with my crystal ball jutsu, only to find him crying his heart out into his pillow in bed in loneliness. It's the only time he drops his mask. Both Anbu and Anko were clenching their fists in anger. The Anbu scowled behind her mask. She knew the reason for this as she had been briefed when joining Anbu about any threats to the village. The Kyubi container was always a possible risk, but she couldn't speak of that outright due to the Sandame's laws. Anko snarled. What was out of his control to merit this kind of treatment? Hiruzen lowered his head. It's an S-class secret that no one is allowed to speak of under penalty of death, a law I passed. Anko tightened her fists. Forgive me for being so forthright, Hokage-sama, but that's just bullshit on so many levels. It looks like everyone in the village already knows about whatever it is, so what's the point in forbidding them to talk about it? So Naruto-kun and the others his age don't find out. I'm not sure how he'd react to the news, and it was the only way I could think of to give him a chance at a normal childhood, Hiruzen said sadly. Anko looked at the elderly Hokage in rage. So even he doesn't know why he's being attacked and beaten multiple times a week? That's just plain wrong. Hiruzen nodded. I know it is, but he will be told when he is ready. He starts the academy in a few weeks, so if he passes and becomes a genin at 16 and then chunin after, then I will reveal it to him. Anko slammed her hands on the Hokage's desk, trying to rein in her anger at what she was hearing. With all due respect, at the rate he is getting beaten, he won't make it to genin, screw chunin. And that's at least another 4 years of beatings, of not knowing why, even if he does make it to genin. Hiruzen sighed. Ikgao, remove your mask. Aniko Anbu took off her mask and nodded as Hiruzen set down his pipe. Ikgao, what do you believe? I know you've been assigned to guard Naruto-kun at least once a week on the rotation, and there has never been an incident while you were on duty. Do you believe he is ready to know what we're talking about? Ikgao nodded. I do. I believe that Naruto-kun has much more intelligence than he lets on. The level of sophistication in the traps he uses in his pranks show great planning and skill, as well as a sense of style and appreciation for his work. He is hiding a lot more than just his emotions. If trained properly, he will make a fine shinobi. I see no harm in telling him now. Hiruzen nodded as he lifted up his pipe for another drag before releasing it with a sigh. Very well then, I believe I know a way that this might just work out for the best, but we will wait until Naruto-kun wakes up to discuss further. I will tell him and you, Anko, why he has been targeted and finally tell him and give him something that should make his life a little easier. Scene break. After a few more minutes Naruto finally started to wake up groaning, ow, that hurt. Where am I? Hiruzen smiles hearing Naruto's voice, in my office Naruto, you were rescued and brought here for rest and safety by an academy student. Groaning Naruto sat up rubbing the back of his head with his eyes closed, ouch, thanks, Jiji, if you could tell that academy student I owe them one. Anko smirked hearing that, and I'll collect on it, she voiced looking at the blonde with a smirk. Hearing the voice Naruto's eyes opened to see the girl that it came from, damn she was cute, he blinked a few times, I take it, you're the one who saved me? Naruto asked looking at the girl only 2 years his elder. You've got that right, name's Anko Mitarashi, Gaki she smirked. Naruto's eyebrow twitched, thanks for the save, name's Naruto Uzumaki, not Gaki. Naruto spoke emphasizing the not part. Anko smirked, whatever you say, Gaki. She grinned. Naruto's eye twitched again as he stood up, well thanks for the breather Jiji, I think I'll head home Naruto turned towards the door to leave, but as he did he felt a little chill, before he looked down and his eyes widened, ah crap, what happened to my clothes they look like I've been. Oh yeah I was, great, just great and this was my last good set and it cost me 7,000 ryo. Hearing the price tag on that ridiculously horrible tracksuit, both Anko and Ikka looked to the Hokage, whose eyes were shadowed under his hat, as a small amount of killing intent Ki leaked off him as he started to talk, Naruto just where did you buy that monstro? He started but stopped before rephrasing I mean that tracksuit. Naruto looked back to his grandfather figure, the civilian clothing store on the main street Y. Hiruzen waved him off, well that's another one of those bastards for the rack and a visit to Ibiki, 7,000 ryo for that monstrosity, civilian stores can't sell anything over 3,000 as per my law, and even at that there's no way that thing would be worth that, obviously overpricing him because of who he is, never mind Naruto, never mind, I was hoping you could stay a short time. There are some things I'd like to talk about with you if that's alright. Naruto gulped and waved his hands above his head frantically, if this is about the pink clothes dye in the Anbu uniform wash, I didn't do it. At that Hiruzen blinked, Ikka looked at him wide-eyed, and Anko looked like she was about to bust a gut in laughter as 3 other Anbu dropped from the ceiling, their usual all-black attire, now a bright fluorescent pink as they pointed at Naruto and yelled, it was you. At that moment Naruto and Anko couldn't hold their laughter as they fell to the ground clutching their guts, laughing at the sight of the 3 bright pink Anbu. Ikka looked to be just about holding her own laughter back, luckily for her, she always washed her uniform at home and not at HQ, which begged the question. Just how did Naruto get into the most heavily guarded place in the whole village to pull his prank? While wearing a bright kill me now orange tracksuit. Hiruzen hid his laughter behind his a small sigh, all the while thinking, just like Kushina, always pranking, before clearing his throats making the Anbu salute before returning to their posts grumbling. Hiruzen smiled, no Naruto-kun it isn't about that, it's just that I believe it's time I told you a few things that I have been keeping secret from you. The young Naruto blinked, you've been hiding things from me Jiji? Naruto asked in a hurt tone. Hiruzen nodded sadly, not because I wanted to Naruto-kun. It's that it was necessary for your safety at the time and on some level, I wasn't sure how you would take it. But I think you're ready to know now, please take a seat. Hiruzen gestured in a kind tone. Naruto nodded his head in understanding and walked over to the chair in front of the Hokage's desk and sat down. Hiruzen nodded as Anko and Ikka took their seats also, Hiruzen looked to Naruto. Naruto my boy, before we can begin, there is one thing I would like to ask you to do. Naruto blinked, what is it Jiji? He asked with a big grin. Hiruzen frowned, please take off that mask and show us the real you. Naruto immediately stiffened and his smile disappeared, this didn't go unnoticed by the 2 beside him seeing his reaction. Naruto gulped slightly, Jiji. How do you know about that? The elderly Hokage frowned looking sadly at the boy, there isn't much I don't know Naruto, now please, let us see the real you that you keep hidden behind that mask. The young blonde tightened his fists and his body tensed slightly before relaxing. You could honestly see his eyes lose some of their brightness and innocence as he did so as a serious look covered his face. Hi Hokage-sama, Naruto responded making the old man look visibly shocked. Naruto never called him that, he had always called him Jiji or Hokage Jiji, hearing the formal name and in such a tone took him back for a second and he frowned. Naruto, is this the real you? Hiruzen asked sadly. Naruto nodded, hi Hokage-sama, it is. Hiruzen's fists tightened a bit in anger seeing his unofficial grandson this serious and hearing such a tone from him at such an age. What has this village done to you, Naruto? Naruto, you can dispense with the formal titles, they aren't required at this moment, especially with what I'm going to tell you, Hiruzen said in a sad tone, desperately hoping to see some resemblance of the boy he had watched day by day, happily go about pranking and not letting the looks the villagers gave him get to him. No, not even a flicker, just a nod, hi was all he got. Clenching his fists tighter for a second before finally giving up and releasing them with a sigh, very well then let's get down to business, it's time I told you about. He was about to continue when Naruto spoke. Excuse me for interrupting, but I do believe we're not alone, Naruto said as he looked over to the bookcase. This got the attention from the other occupants of the room. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes, what do you mean Naruto-kun? Assuming that you only have 3 Anbu in this room, all in pink I might add, there is another one hidden in the bookshelf watching us right now, Naruto reported making the other 3 Anbu drop from the ceiling around the bookcase weapons drawn. When suddenly, a black figure burst from behind the bookcase and tried to make an escape, only to be restrained by the other Anbu. Lifting the man up, he wore a white animal mask like Anbu, but on the forehead was the kanji for Nanine. Seeing this Hiruzen clenched his fists again, nah, damn you Danzo, I ordered that little group of yours disbanded and now I find you spying on me, take him to the T&I department and have Ibiki informed I will be along within an hour or so, Hiruzen ordered getting nods from the 3 Anbu as they shunshin away with the man in restraints. When they left the Hokage looked to Naruto along with Anko and Ikkao, Naruto, how did you know he was there when the rest of us didn't? Hiruzen asked. Naruto looked to him, a year or so ago my senses started to become more delicate, my sight and sense of sound and smell all became sharper. I could see things in greater detail and at greater distances, and I could smell the faintest smell, but also pick up on the more foul odors. I had to figure out how to cut the chakra to my nose for a while and stop smelling for a week while I aired out my apartment. One bonus was I could smell any extra ingredients to any food I bought so as not to poison myself. My hearing became so fine I could hear the faintest sounds and distinguish them from others, it's so fine I can hear heartbeats. There were 4 of us and 3 Anbu in the room, but yet I heard 8 heartbeats, I merely followed my ears to find the one who didn't belong, Naruto reported not missing a beat. This made Hiruzen's eyes widen slightly, perhaps it's the Kikba's chakra making him stronger, if so all the better I tell him now, I see, then it's a good thing I'm choosing to tell you this now, because if what I suspect is correct, then both this and your heightened senses are connected. This made Naruto's eyes widen slightly as he looked to the Hokage with a nod of understanding, as he took his seat again. Hiruzen sighed as Anko and Ikkao took their seats also, I suppose I should start with your parents Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes widened, but you said you didn't. Hiruzen raised his hand, I did. But that was because of who they were, they both had many enemies your 2-sen especially, and you being announced as his son would have made you a prime target for assassination attempts. Naruto nodded slowly understanding, are they still? Hiruzen shook his head, I'm sorry my boy, both of them died the night you were born, but I can tell you about them, Hiruzen smiled slightly, hoping to cheer the boy up some. Naruto nodded slightly, and a small smile graced his face at the thought of hearing about them, I'd like that, thanks Gigi. Hearing the affectionate name Naruto called him again made the Hokage smile, well at least there's still some of you in there, first your Ka-san, her name was Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto's eyes widened, yes you take your name from her side of the family, she couldn't give it up due to her being the last of her clan. Naruto's eyes started to tear slightly, I had a clan. Hiruzen nodded, yes the Uzumaki clan from Uzuyuzushi village hidden in the whirlpools, they were the Leaf Village's greatest allies during the First and Second Shinobi Wars, sadly though towards the end of the second in a combined attack from the Iwa Wagakure village hidden in the stone and Komo Kumagakure village hidden in the clouds they were wiped out. Your Ka-san survived due to her 2-san, Mamoru Uzumaki, clan head sending her away when they heard of the attack coming, they entrusted her with the entire clan jutsu library and funds because they knew the clan wouldn't survive the attack coming. Your Ka-san was one of the most headstrong, impulsive, eccentric, and stubborn girls you would ever meet. She was fun-loving and was always playing pranks on anyone who made fun of her bright red hair, ironic that her hair was part of the reason she was so memorable in the Third Shinobi War. She gained the title of Red Hot-Blooded Habanero, she was a master of her clan's Kenjutsu and Kenjutsu and was deadly on the battlefield, with them both in combination and with her special chakra chains that were unique to her. When she found out she was pregnant with you, her and your 2-sen were so excited they couldn't wait to be parents and to watch you grow up, but sadly it wasn't meant to be, Hiruzen said with a sigh. So they did love me. I always wondered if they did or not, if that was the reason they gave me up, but seeing as they're both dead I can understand, Naruto said with a small frown as he wiped a tear away from his eye. But you can be sure of Naruto-kun, I had never seen more people more excited to be parents than yours. Now Naruto, before I tell you of your two-sen there is one thing I want you to understand first, should you decide to take his family name as your own, you can't do it until you become a genin. At least that way you will be able to protect yourself when you do, and you can't tell anyone you're his son until then. It would cause major complications and a lot of trouble, do you understand? Hiruzen said in a serious tone. Naruto nodded, I understand Jiji. The Hokage nodded, your two-sen's name was Minato Namikaze, but you would know him better as the Yondaime. I'm the son of the fourth Hokage, Naruto said, speechless at that very moment, not sure how to handle this. He was the son of the village hero, the man who died defeating the Kyubi no Kitsune, and who practically single-handedly ended the Third Shinobi War with his version Hiraishin no Jutsu Flying Thunder God technique, a technique that he had copied from the Nidaime. He was a master of the art of Kenjutsu, one of the only recorded students of the legendary Sannin Jiraiya, who had been a student of the third Hokage, but if that was the case, there was only one thing that he couldn't grasp now, why? The three occupants of the room looked at him in confusion. Why what, Naruto? Asked Hiruzen, seeing the blonde clench his fists. Why, if I'm the son of the fourth, am I treated like the scum of the earth? Why am I treated like this, beaten on a weekly basis? I was kicked out of the orphanage at 4, I had to survive on the streets for 2 weeks eating garbage, sleeping in a cardboard box, trying not to lose my fingertips to rats. If I'm the son of the fourth, why am I treated like I'm a plague? Why do I get glared at like I'm a fucking murderer? Naruto started as his voice rose into a yell as tears started to flow down his cheeks. Anko looked at the boy younger than her. She hadn't known about the boy's life before and she was shocked hearing it, she couldn't even comprehend what he had done to deserve this treatment, and being the Yondaime's son means he should have been living in the lap of luxury. And if his Ka-san was some clan head then he should be loaded, and yet he looked to be malnourished and dressed in the most horrible clothes possible. She had known hell, her parents had died when she was 3, so she was an orphan too, but she had been taken in by the Sannin Orochimaru when she was 6, he had seen potential in her and had taken her as his student and even let her sign the snake contract at the age of 8, of course. Things had all went sideways a year later when it was discovered he was a traitor and was kidnapping shinobi and civilians for experiments. He had tried to take her with him when he left, but she didn't want to leave, that's when he turned on her and gave her a curse mark before leaving her to her suffering. After that night, when all his crimes were revealed. Even though she had refused him, she was seen as nothing more than his pupil after that day, and people treated her like she was him. So being shunned and glared at and treated like crap she knew all too well, of course, she at least had Ikkao. She had been the one who found her the night Orochimaru had left the village and took her to the Hokage who had helped her through the curse mark. But unfortunately he couldn't remove it, it was doubtful anyone could, and so the mark served as a reminder of her sensei all these years. Ikkao had become like a big sister to Anko, the two shared a 2-bedroom apartment while Anko was in the academy. He's treated worse than me, but it doesn't make sense, why? Hiruzen stood up taking in a breath of his pipe and looked out the window to the village below, because this village is filled with stupid civilians that can't tell the difference between a container and its content and is full of resentment, anger and hatred toward someone who had no control over and say in what happened to him. Hiruzen growled angrily, releasing a little bit of kekkei at the village in his anger. Ikkao looked down ashamed in agreement, but both Naruto and Anko still looked confused as to what the old man was talking about. Jiji, what are you saying? What container? What content? The old man sat down with a defeated look on his face, he was getting too old for this shit. He just sighed. Naruto, what is your two-sen best known for? Filling the Kyubi on the. Wait, both my parents died the night I was born on the. Then they both died fighting. But how? Naruto rambled, holding his head as all the facts started to come together. Hiruzen nodded, you're starting to see, Naruto. Both your parents died protecting the village from the Kyubi attack. No one knew where the Kyubi came from as it just appeared out of nowhere that night, but in truth, the Kyubi had been in the village for many years, but it had been sealed away. First it was sealed away into the wife of the Shodai Hokage, her name was Mito Uzumaki, your grand-aunt, Mito-sama was sister to Mamoru Uzumaki, and the marriage between her and Hashirama Senju bonded the two clans. She was the first Jinchuriki of the Kyubi. When she was dying, she passed that duty on to the only other one who could take it, the only Uzumaki left at the time. Your Ka-san Kushina was the second Jinchuriki of the Kyubi because of the Uzumaki's abnormally large chakra capacity, and as such abnormally large chakra coils, which dwarf most Kage, even my own, they were best suited to hold the Kyubi's vast chakra. No one knows what happened, but the night of your birth the Kyubi broke free from your Ka-san's seal and attacked the village, and so your two-san did the only thing he could do. The Kyubi is a massive chakra it can't be killed, so he had only one option left, he sealed it in the only vessel that could hold it, He sealed it inside of me, the Kyubi no Kitsune, the demon that killed a third of the village is sealed inside of me, Naruto said aloud in realization. Hiruzen nodded and was about to speak again, but Naruto continued. Now it all makes sense, the villagers, they They see me as the kekkei, they see me as the one who killed their loved ones. Those dumb fucking idiots. I'm not even an academy student yet, and even I know the difference between a kunai and the scroll it's stored in, those complete fucktards. That's it. The next time they attack me I'm kicking some ass, to hell with running, I'm done with that, I'm going to fucking kill the lot of them. Gao blinked for a second looking at the blonde who had just taken a complete 180 in personality. 1 second he looked like he was about to cry, and now he looked like he was ready to take the next guy's head off him that looks at him wrong. What's with this kid? Gao though as she gave a small smirk. Anko couldn't help but grin and laugh looking at Naruto. I like your way of thinking Gaki, I'll even lend you a hand, I could use the practice. Here is inside hearing this, I pity the next ones who try anything with these two teamed up. I can just feel a headache coming on from the council screaming, and that Haruno woman screams shatter glass, I think she's part banshee. Hiruzen took a breath. Well, you do start the academy in 3 weeks Naruto, and when you become a shinobi of the village, there are laws preventing the civilians from touching you, giving you right to use lethal force. Not that I would condone such things, but it's food for thought, Hiruzen said with a smirk of his own. Both Anko and Naruto started grinning like mad remembering that, and both Ikao and Hiruzen had the same thoughts. Kami-sama helped the village when these two team up. Hiruzen cleared his throat. Naruto-kun, you also have an inheritance that your parents left you. Sadly their house was destroyed in the kekkei attack, but with your Two-san and Ka-san being masters of Genjutsu had a backup plan that if the house was destroyed, all objects in the house marked with a seal were transferred into a sealing scroll in this office. They also gave me control over both the Namikaze and Uzumaki banking accounts, should anything happen to them. I've been using some of the money to support you anytime you ask for an advance or increase, due to other matters not making it possible, but it hasn't even made a dent, seeing as the Uzumaki were, to be blunt, filthy rich from their work and as per the arrangement in your parents' will. 5% of the funds are available to you until your genin when the rest will be available to you. Naruto nodded. Thanks, Gigi, good to know I've got cash to burn, seeing as how the shops charge me triple the legal asking price. Hiruzen blinked. You knew? Naruto nodded. Of course I did, I'm not as dumb as I look wearing this monstrosity Gigi, it was all the mask I was wearing. That, and it's all clothes the shops would sell me. Hiruzen nodded visibly angry. I see, well I'll see what I can do about that. Do you have clothes to wear now Naruto? Naruto shook his head. No, this was my last tracksuit, I had 4 pairs, but they've all ended up like this one or worse. I see, well we'll just have to get you some new clothes tomorrow. For now, Hiruzen snapped his fingers and an Anbu in pink appeared, holding a black shirt, making Anko and Naruto giggle again, as the Anbu tossed the shirt at Naruto before disappearing. The shirt was a few sizes too big, but he just pulled off his old one, much to Anko's shock. He wasn't malnourished, he was actually well-toned with no fat on him whatsoever, he was well built for that of a 12-year-old. As he pulled on the new shirt and tucked it in, he got a blinking response from Anko. Damn it Gaki, how did you get so ripped? And you're only 12. Anko said licking her lips. Naruto shrugged. I'm planning to be a shinobi, so I have to be in shape. When I knew I was going to the academy, I'd planned to take the mask off and show everyone what I was really like. Now hearing all this, I plan to kick butt even more. Hiruzen smiled hearing that. Well if that's the case Naruto, I think I have just the things to get you started, he said as he got up and walked over to a safe opening it and pulling out a scroll. Walking back to his desk he opened it revealing a storage seal array. Channeling chakra into it there were a series of poofs of smoke. As it cleared it showed a few things, one was another scroll, 2 letters, and the final was a small box about the size of a loaf of bread. Hiruzen lifted up the 2 letters and handed them to Naruto. Your parents gave me these to give to you when I finally told you about them, I'm sure you'll want to read them in private, but come see me if you have any questions. Naruto looked at the letters for a few moments and then smiled. Thanks, Gigi. Hiruzen nodded before handing him the scroll, and in this is the instructions on how to perform the Kage Bunshin Shadow Clone no Jutsu. Kushina was never able to perform the regular Bunshin clone jutsu because of her massive amounts of chakra, as in Uzumaki, it's impossible for someone so young to perform it, so the Kage Bunshin will be your version of it. Your Ka-san left you her notes on it in the scroll as well, I hope it helps. Naruto smiled. I'm sure it will Gigi, I'll start learning it tomorrow after I get some new clothes. Hiruzen nodded, and finally, I have this for you, Hiruzen said as he pushed the box forward, opening it up as the front pulled away showing a collection of blank scrolls and paper with 5 ink bottles, brushes and a scroll labeled Genjutsu Book 1. Beginner 1. Naruto blinked at it and then looked to Hiruzen. If you're anything like your parents, you'll be a genius at Genjutsu like both of them. Your Ka-san was a master of your clan's Genjutsu style, and she taught your Two-san everything she knew. It was because of your mother's teaching that your Two-san was able to create his own version of the Nidame's Hiraishin, if you do decide to pick it up then. Naruto smiled, that's perfect Jiji, I was planning in the future to actually study Kenjutsu later on at the academy, but if I can start it early, then that would be great. Hiruzen frowned, actually Naruto, Kenjutsu isn't taught at the academy. The academy covers the three basics, ninjutsu, taijutsu and jinjutsu, along with a history of the elemental nations and other things deemed relevant by the civilian council. Naruto raised an eyebrow, maybe I'm just not getting the full picture here, but is that right? I mean a civilian council, deciding what's right to be taught in a shinobi academy in a shinobi village, shouldn't it be the shinobi side and you who decide that Jiji? Hiruzen nodded, you would think so, but I've got so much paperwork I don't have time to work everything, damn paperwork. Naruto blinked, what about that Kage Bunshin? If I'm reading this right they retain all your memories, Naruto said as he read the first few lines of the scroll out of curiosity, so why not create a few of them to do the paperwork for you Jiji? At that very moment you could hear a fly fart in the room, and then the next second Hiruzen lunged across the table at Naruto hugging him. Thank you Naruto, thank you. I have been trying to get away from that paperwork for years, and now it might be finally possible, thank Kami-sama for you Naruto. Both Anko and Ikao looked at the scene sweat dropping, and the next second Hiruzen was back on his feet coughing, that incident is now classified SSS class, talking about it means immediate death am I clear he said in a serious voice. But all three just burst out laughing, that's a good one Jiji. Hiruzen sighed walking back to his desk, now Naruto, I think it would be best that you moved apartments, seeing as how your other one is so run down, I will begin looking for a new place for you to stay tomorrow, while we go clothes shopping for you. Ikao interrupted then, excuse me Hokage-sama, I believe I may have a place that could accommodate Naruto-kun here, there is an apartment in the complex where myself and Anko live just next door, the rent is 750 ryo a month, and it is spacious enough for a boy of his age. Naruto smiled, that sounds perfect. That's 3 times cheaper than what I'm currently paying for rent, so I'm already sold. The Hokage looked at Naruto, Naruto what do you mean? Your rent is only 450 ryo a month and it comes out of the treasury as you're an orphan. Naruto just slapped his own forehead, how didn't I get that, damn stupid landlord's been charging me 2500 ryo every month out of my own pocket. Hiruzen clenched his fists, finally having enough of this, before snapping his fingers making an Anbu appear who wasn't in pink, arrest a landlord for crimes of tax evasion and cheating the treasury, take him to Ibiki and inform the scum all assets of his are seized, and he is stripped of his citizenship and all his assets transferred under the name Naruto Uzumaki. Mark them as reparations for crimes against himself. The Anbu nodded, before disappearing. Hiruzen nodded and looked to Naruto congratulations Naruto you are now property owner. Everyone's sweat dropped and Naruto shrugged, well I can just knock it all down and sell off the land, the place is a dump. The girls and Hokage nodded and then spoke, right shall we go and see this apartment, then Naruto, I'll have you put on the lease by night's end, Naruto grinned, sounds good to me. With a smile, all 4 of them started walking off to go see Naruto's new apartment, with one thing was certain things were going to change a lot. Chapter 2. Naruto opens his eyes and blinks looking up at the unfamiliar ceiling, where the hell am? Oh yay my new apartment. The blonde stood up and rolled up the futon he had been using the night previously that the Hokage had sent one of his Anbu for until they got Naruto his furniture later that day. Naruto looked over to the side of his room to see the chest, scroll, and letters the Hokage had given him, deciding now was as good a time as any to read the letters he picked them up and slid down the wall and opened the first of the letters, it was a woman's handwriting. Dear Naruto-kun. If you are reading this then the worst has come to pass and I and your 2 sen are no longer alive. I want to apologize for that above all, I did not want to leave you. Even though I only got to hold you for a few minutes I will always hold those minutes close to my heart, you look so adorable. I am writing this as your 2 sen holds you, you look so much like him, I can already tell you're going to be a real lady killer when you grow up just like your 2 sen. I hope you grow up to be a kind, strong and gentle man, my only regret is that I won't be there to see it. There is so much I want to say, so much I want to tell you, so many memories I want to share, so much I want to know. I wonder what your life will be like after we're gone. I wonder who will be your first love, your favorite food, color, book, your first words. Oh, Naruto-kun I don't want to leave you, but I have no choice. The kekkei was ripped from me and set on a rampage, and the only way to seal it is in an Uzumaki, I can't do it in my weakened state, it would only break free again, it has to be you. I have pleaded with your 2 sen to find another way, but there isn't time. I just hope that the village will see you for the hero you are keeping the kekkei at bay. Please forgive me for leaving you Naruto it is not by my choice, just know that you are loved and will always be loved. All the love in the world. Your Ka-san, Kushina Uzumaki. Halfway through the letter Naruto had started tearing up and now he was crying his heart out as tears flowed from his eyes as he read the letter over and over again through watery eyes. Finally after crying for what seemed like hours he folded the letter and put it to the side as he opened the second letter. Dear Naruto. Since you're reading this, then that means the old monkey finally told you who we were. I'm sure that came as a bit of a shock, didn't it? It also means that you've been told that you hold the kekkei and that I was the one to seal it inside of you. I wish there was more time to look for another way to do it. I wish we had more time, but as I write this, your Ka-san is lying down with you in her arms and the kekkei is being held back from the village by our shinobi. They can't last much longer, so I must be brief. Your Ka-san won't be around to tell you this as the kekkei was ripped from her. Jinchurikis can't survive without their Bijkin, and right now it's only her will keeping her alive, but she can't last much longer. She doesn't want me to seal it in you, but there is no one else that can hold the kekkei, and even if there was as Hokage, I can't ask someone else to give up their child for such a task. The kekkei was ripped from your Ka-san by a man in a cloak and mask with one eye socket. I chased him off, but the kekkei is still on the rampage. I don't know why he did it, but what's done is done. Though he may return in the future, so be on alert. I know you will be strong enough to fight off whatever comes at you. You are my son, after all, I believe you can do it. I have told the old monkey you are to take your Ka-san's name, as I know that if you are named my son and the Jinchuriki, then your life will be far too dangerous. But if you want to take my name, I have made preparations. Sealed at the back of this letter are blood samples of both mine and your Ka-san's, along with your birth certificate. The hospital will also have mine and Kashina's blood on record. Give them to the old man when or if you want to take on my name, they will prove you are our son. Also sealed is the remains of your Ka-san sword. It was broken in the attack when the man in the mask took you and killed Sarutaba's wife. I didn't tell him this, so he could focus on the battle and not go searching for the man who is already long gone, so I now leave that to you. Gomenasai. There should be a blacksmith weapons shop called Shinobi Arms. The owner, Daichi Ashiro, was the only one your Ka-san allowed to even touch her blade apart from herself or me. He was also the one who made my Hirashin kunai. Once he sees the sword, he will no doubt put the facts together. If you want to learn your Ka-san's clan's kenjutsu, I'm sure that would make her very happy, so I've sealed away the beginner scroll in the letter as well, along with a few of your Ka-san's clan jutsu. The rest I'm sure the old monkey can give you from our vault. They are quite a drain on chakra from those who are not in Uzumaki, but with such large reserves already, I know you will be just fine. I have to go now. Just know that I will always love you and that I can only hope that you can come to forgive me for putting this burden on you and then leaving you. I know you will make us both proud. With all the love I can give. Your Tusan Minato Namek is Yondame Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. Naruto slowly set the letter, taking a deep breath as a few tears escaped his eyes. I forgive you, Tusan, and I will make you proud. Looking to the back of the letter, there was a large seal on it. Channeling chakra into it, poofed, unsealing the contents. On the floor now in front of him sat an assortment of objects. First there was a birth certificate with 2 files of blood on it. There were 5 scrolls with different colored bands around them, and finally a katana. It was magnificent. The handle was wooden with a gold hilt with a red cloth grip to the guard, which was also golden, which was actually the Uzumaki swirl. The blade was broken in the middle, but as his Tusen had mentioned, the blade had been so when sealed. A scroll beside it was full of the Uzumaki kenjutsu. Naruto let his hand glide over the handle of the kanata. Don't worry, Ka-san, I'll make you both proud. Naruto then looked at the Kage Bunshin scroll, and I'll start right now. Taking the scroll, he started reading it back to front and reread his Ka-san's notes. Kage Bunshin. This technique creates copies of the user. However, these clones are corporeal instead of illusions. The user's chakra is evenly distributed among every clone, giving each clone an equal fraction of the user's overall power. The clones are capable of performing techniques on their own and can even bleed, but will usually disperse after hit by a strong enough force. The clones can also disperse on their own or be dispelled by the user of the technique. Shadow clones can't be distinguished from the original with a Sharingan or Byakugan Jutsu, which is handy to use when fighting them. Also, they come in handy when doing chores around the house. The handy thing to remember about the Kage Bunshin technique is that the user retains all the memories from the clones once they are dispelled. This makes techniques that require muscle memory or memorizing information easier to get down. As they say, 2 heads are better than 1, though for in Uzumaki it's more like 200. Extra note. Must teach this technique to Minato. This technique would be great in bed. Reading that last bit, Naruto immediately blushed red, realizing what it meant, and then shook his head. Oh great, my Ka-san was a pervert. Well, at least I know where I get that part of me from, but those clones sound really handy. Muscle memory, that's like stances, punches, kick, hand signs and movements like writing. This could really help me out when I start learning kenjutsu. Naruto grinned. Well, I guess I know what I'm learning first, but I've only got a few hours until Jiji comes to get me and we go furniture and clothes shopping. Plenty of time to get this one down. Now let's see here. Time skip 1 hour later. There was a knock at the door and Naruto walked over to answer it. He opened it to show a smirking Anko. Morning Gaki, how's things? Anko asked with a grin. Naruto smirked back, going slow this morning, trying to get this Kage Bunshin jutsu down, never learned a jutsu before. Enko chuckled, I'll give you a hand then, I always wanted to learn some other type of clone aside from the regular, she said as she came in, and the two sat down and started going over the scroll. Naruto looked to Enko, thanks again for the save yesterday, you really saved my ass. Enko giggled, no problem Gaki, it's a nice ass to be saving. Naruto looked to Enko, you only just met me yesterday, and now you're complimenting my ass. You sure do have a strange sense of timing, especially for someone around our ages. Enko shrugged, what can I say, a girl likes what she likes. Naruto shook his head with a smirk and went back to reading the scroll. Time skip 1 more hour later. Hiruzen walked to Naruto's new apartment and knocked on the door, hearing a whole pile of ruckus inside he raised an eyebrow, what's going on in there? The next thing the door opened showing the room full of Naruto and 2 Enko being tossed about like beach balls, this isn't funny Gaki. Enko yelled as she was tossed yet again. The Naruto clones were all laughing watching them go, we think it is. All the clones yelled laughing. But then Hiruzen coughed getting everyone's attention causing all the clones to drop the 2 girls, one going off in a poof, and then in another larger explosion of smoke, the horde of Naruto clones disappeared, leaving only one with a grin on his face, hey Gigi, we were wondering when you were going to get here. Hiruzen chuckled hearing the blonde, well Naruto, I can see both you and Anko have the Kage Bunshin down, impressive, learning an AR rank ninjutsu in just a few hours, and your very first one also, you certainly are your 2-san son. Naruto grinned rubbing the back of his head sheepishly, yeah it wasn't easy, it wasn't until Anko-chan came over and helped me that I finally got it down flat. The Hokage blinked and smiled, oh so it's Anko-chan, now is it, my aren't you two getting friendly quickly he grinned. Naruto chuckled, oh 2 can play at that game Gigi, well you know what they say about those who become ninja, old enough to kill and all that, plus she's cute I wouldn't mind. The old Hokage's eyes widened hearing that as he felt a nosebleed just about to come on, he quickly turned and coughed bringing his hand up to cover it, cough, quite right Naruto-kun quite right, now let's be off, we still have to get you sorted with clothes and new furnishings for your apartment he said, starting to walk away. Naruto was about to follow when he felt a weight being draped over his shoulders, he looked back to see Anko leaning on him with a very big grin, what was that all for Gaki, did you just say that to bust his balls, or did you actually mean that you said she asked with a suggestive tone in her voice, but with a slight hint of fear. Naruto heard the slight tone in her voice, truthfully, yes. But you have to understand Anko-chan, I've never had very many friends, you'd probably be the first. I didn't want to do anything to risk that friendship so soon. When I saw you. You were gorgeous, you're beautiful and strong, clever, and don't judge me for having the kekkei in me. I'd have to be a complete moron not to have feelings for you. Anko was taken back by that here was this boy she had only just met the other day, complimenting her like that, calling her beautiful and telling her he has feelings for her. For some reason it made her feel nice, she smiled, not seductively, not sadistically, but happily. You really think that she blushed for the first time in her life the young snake charmer blushed. Naruto nodded, I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, so Anko-chan what do you say, should we give it a go, slowly to see where it leads. Anko blushed again with a smile, as sure, I wouldn't mind. Naruto smiled holding out his hand she slowly took it and they began to walk forward to the door. Anko looked at Naruto who had a slight smile on his lips, it made her smile, you know Naruto-kun, you're my first real friend too. Naruto looked to her sad hearing that, I'm sorry to hear that. Anko nodded softly, it was because of my first sensei, when I was 7 years old, I was taken under his wing, he trained me, but when I was 9, he was branded a traitor for crimes against the village, he left and tried to take me with him, but I refused to go. It's because of him that I'm looked at as if I was the traitor as if I'm him. Naruto stopped hearing that, Anko's heart hitched, what if he thought of her the same way, what if he was just like all the others, what if? Her thoughts were halted when Naruto wrapped his arms around her and held her in a hug. I'm sorry he said softly, and he hugged her making Anko's eyes widened, what did he have to be sorry for, I'm sorry you had to go through all the pain you have, I'm sorry we couldn't have been friends sooner, but I swear I will not let anyone hurt you again. Hearing that almost brought Anko to tears she hugged onto the younger boy for dear life, Naruto smiled feeling her hug him tighter and let the girl have her moment before they separated and walked out of the apartment hand in hand, but before they did Naruto quickly ran back and took his Ka-san's broken sword which was sealed inside a scroll with him before they walked out. As they walked out the Hokage looked to them and see them holding hands and he smiled, good for you Naruto good for you, well shall we get going, we have lots to buy. Both Naruto and Anko nodded and walked along with the Hokage heading for the shops. Scene break. Both Naruto and Anko walked down the street beside the Hokage, Naruto looked to the elderly Hokage, Gigi, do you know of a shop called Shinobi Arms? Hiruzen nodded, why yes I do Naruto, it's run by an old friend of your 2-san's, the man knew your 2-san back in the academy and even became a shinobi, but retired after a mission of his went bad and he lost his teammate sadly. He now runs the shop. Your Two-san and Ka-san used to visit it frequently. Why do you ask? Naruto tapped the scroll he had. My Ka-san left me her sword, though it was broken in the incident when the kekkei was released. My Two-san said in the letter to take it to him for repairs, as he's the only one Ka-san ever allowed to work on her blade. Also after this there's something I need to tell you about what happened the day of my birth. About how the kekkei was released and what happened after. The elderly Hokage saw the look in the boy's eyes of sadness, whatever it was painful for someone. The Hokage nodded. Alright my boy, after we're done shopping we'll go back to my office to talk. Naruto nodded in thanks. He wasn't looking forward to telling the man he looked up to as a grandfather about that night, about how the man who not only released the kekkei that caused both his parents' deaths was also the one who killed his wife. It would not be a pleasant conversation. Scene break. The bell rang as the three of them walked into the store. As they did, a man came out. He was huge, at least 7 foot tall, with a body that looked like a hunk of muscle. He wore a black shirt and thick navy cloth pants. His hair was long and black, but was kept in a braid that ran to the middle of his back. He wore a white blacksmith's apron over his front which had multiple marks on it, showing it was worn a lot. Coming out of the back, the man blinked, seeing the two children coming into his store along with that of the Hokage of the village. The man immediately lowered his head. Hokage-sama, it's an honor for you to grace my store with your presence today. What might I help you with? The elderly Hokage smiled, seeing the man again. Ah, Daichi-kun, it's good to see you again, it's been too long. I'm just bringing along this one here to get him kitted out in some new attire. He personally requested to come here. The large man blinked and looked to the young blonde boy, knowing who he was in an instant. Not many didn't know of the kekkei container in the older generations, but he knew his friend's work would hold and didn't hold the fact against the boy. Oh well, this is a surprise. Boy, why did you request to come here? Not that I'm not flattered, but normally people have to shop at a store once to know if they like the place, and I'm certain you've never shopped here before, so what made you want to? The blonde smiled, seeing the rather large man and hearing the way he talked to him, and he knew that he wasn't like the rest of the village. There was no malice in his voice. Well, that's actually quite simple, Ashiro-san. My Ka-san trusted your work, and I figured why shouldn't I do the same, he said as he approached the counter, taking the scroll out of his pocket as he went. Daichi looked at the boy, blinking. As far as he had known, Minato had chosen an orphan to house the kekkei, and the boy had never known who his parents were, so this was a confusing statement. Oh, is that a fact, and who was your Ka-san, boy? Naruto smiles and unfurled the scroll and touching the seal, looking at the large man, the last owner of this sword, Naruto stated before channeling chakra, opening the seal and bringing the sword out. H's eyes widened, seeing the sword in front of him. He hadn't seen that sword in 12 years. He knew Kushina and Minato very well, and he knew that sword just as well. He had spent so many hours working on it. Shocked, he looked at the sword and then to the boy in front of him, and then it hit him. He was one of the few to know about Minato and Kushina's marriage. There was only 12 or so who actually knew about it. It had been a small event to keep it that way. After all, what would Kumo and I would do if they heard the two biggest threats to them got married? That would just be asking for trouble. And now here was this boy in front of him claiming Kushina was his Ka-san and looking like a mini Minato with whiskers. He had to be sure. He looked to the Hokage for confirmation to get a sad nod, making the man's eyes widen more as he looked back to the boy in front of him. Well, I'll be damned, Minato, you sly dog, he said before bursting into a hearty laugh. He pulled one over on the whole village from beyond the grave. I swear I did not see that one coming. Uzumaki-san, your parents were my best friends back in the academy. You are always welcome in my store, he said with a big smile. Naruto grinned back at him. Thank you, Ashiro-san. Daichi waved his hand in front of him, gesturing no, enough of the formalities, call me Daichi, the son of my best friend, has that right? Naruto nodded. Daichi ran his hand over the blade and smiled. The red maelstrom, that's what your Ka-san named her blade. It was the last blade to be made from Yuzu. They had this technique in forging their metals that made them stronger than most, and when Uzumaki chakra runs through it, that is where it really shines. Have you held it yet? Naruto shook his head. No, I was waiting until it was repaired, and that's why I'm here. My Two-san said in his letter to me that you were the only one my Ka-san trusted to work on her blade. That I was, he said as he lifted the broken katana up, looking at the break. It's repairable, but it's going to take a few weeks. Uzumaki blades takes months to form. The metal is steeped in pure Uzumaki chakra. You Two-san came up with a way to repair the blade using seals replicating the Uzumaki chakra for just the purpose. I'll pull them out and start working on it tonight. He then turned the handle towards Naruto. Here, channel your chakra through the blade and see what made Uzumaki steel so special. Naruto took the blade in his hand and focused, channeling his chakra through the blade as told. He opened his eyes to see the metal was actually glowing red with his chakra in it. Cool. Very Uzumaki blades are meant to only be wielded by an Uzumaki. Now that you've wielded it, it's bound to you. It won't let anyone but you or those you allow to wield it. Should they try, the blade will increase in weight, making it impossible to lift, along with giving the fool who tried to wield it nasty chakra burns. So Naruto-san, will Konoha be getting a new red death in the future? Or rather yellow death? Naruto looked confused for a second until the Hokage spoke up. That was your Kase and other nickname given during the war. She was known as the Red Death because of her swordsmanship and her red hair. That and the trail of bodies she left between here and Kumo, the woman was a master with a blade with no equal, Daichi said with a smirk. Anko whistled, the more I hear about your Kasama Naruto-kun, the more I'm starting to like her more and more, she sounds like she was a total badass. Naruto grinned, yay, and yes, hopefully in the future it will. I'm planning to learn my Ka-san's Kenjutsu and take after my two-san in Kenjutsu. I plan on making them both proud. That brought a smile to the Hokage's face. You already have Naruto-kun more than you know. Daichi nodded, well now that that's out of the way, let's get you kitted out, any specific style you're looking for. Naruto smiled, yeah, I've got a few idea. Time skip. After about 3 hours of pulling clothes, with Anko adding her own commentary and saying he should add a trench coat to it all, Naruto finally had his outfit. Steel-toes shinobi boots, black, with chakra metal caps for extra strength and durability. Black Anbu combat trousers, made of a thick and durable fabric, with pockets on both the shins and thighs for kunai and other equipment. A black mesh shirt with red rims around the arms, neck and waist, with red chakra bandages around his midsection. Black fingerless Anbu gloves with metal backplates, and taking Anko's advice, a black shinobi trench coat with chakra metal shoulder pads, and on the back had the kanji for 9th demon down the back in deep red, with the Uzumaki clan mark right above it. When the Hokage asked him why he had that put on it, Naruto simply shrugged saying, that's what the rest of the village see me as, may as well tell them if they try anything now, they're screwed. Anko chuckled, with a rather sadistic grin. I like it. Daichi nodded, your two-sen designed some seals that will make that coat last you. I already took the liberty of applying them to the one you're wearing and to the 2 others in your order. They're for durability and fit. They make the coat grow with your body. Should you suddenly take a growth spurt, the coat will grow with you. How do you think some of the Akimichi use their expansion jutsu without tearing their clothes off them? Your two-sen designed it for them. Before that they had to always wear chakra cloth to allow it to grow with them, but your two-sen fixed all that, and with the durability seal, it's as though it's high-grade body armor. It won't burn or rip without some major firepower behind the attack, so unless you're fighting a cage-level shinobi, I don't think you'll be needing any more soon. Naruto grinned, thanks, oh, and do you sell training weapons here? Daichi nodded, yes we do, what were you looking for, a bokken for training while your Ka-san's blade is in for repair? Naruto nodded, yay, and about 300 of them if you don't mind. Daichi and the Hokage blinked, why so many Naruto-san, are you worried about the quality? Yes Naruto-kun, you could just buy maybe 3 now, and if you need more in a few years come back reason. Naruto shook his head, no, I'm not worried about the quality Daichi-san, and I don't think 3 would do with the way I plan on training Jiji. If what my Ka-san wrote down on the Kage Bunshin scroll is correct, I should be able to use them to get the stances down on the Kenjutsu style with them, and then put them to work sparring after in order to train, and I'd still get the experience and muscle memory. The Hokage nodded, I see, just be careful with that Naruto, you could damage your mind, creating so many clones like that, the influx of memories could hurt, dispel them in groups of about 10 or so, when you do use that method, so as not to hurt yourself. Naruto nodded and looked at Daichi, very well Naruto-san, I will go and get your bokkens, I'll have them in a storage scroll at the front counter with the rest of your order, anything else? Naruto nodded, yes, about 5,000 kunai, shuriken and senbon needles, 20 large scrolls of seal paper, 500 liters of ink, and 500 Kenjutsu brushes and ink jars. Handwriting and throwing are also about muscle memory, I'm going to be blitzing my training when I get home. I want to get through as much as I can before I start the academy in 3 weeks. Daichi nodded again, alright then I'll have the supplies and scrolls by the front desk before turning and leaving to the back. Hiruzen nodded hearing Naruto's plans, Naruto-kun if you want I could, after our meeting, write you up a training schedule to help you train for the next few weeks. I'd also recommend you send some clones to the library to read up on survival guides to pick up other skills like hunting and fishing, and reading up on history, law, politics, and other villages might help also, we could factor all that in also if you'd like. I could also assign you a Kenjutsu instructor to help you with your stances and assess your skills as you progress, I think I have a pair in mind just for that job. Naruto smirked, that would be great Jiji. I can use all the help I can get, though the librarian doesn't like me, much like the rest of the village. Naruto finished rolling his eyes. The Hokage waved him off, no need to worry about it Naruto-kun, I'll see to it that you can come and go as you please, Hiruzen said as they walked to the counter again. Daichi came out of the back with a number of ladled scrolls. Here's everything Naruto-san, I even threw in about 50 practice dummies into another scroll for practicing on free of charge for the amount you've just bought. He smiled. Naruto grinned, thanks, I'll definitely be making use out of them, so how much does all of that come to? The 5 sets of outfits come to 35,000 a set, the 3 coats with seals 5,000 apiece, the 300 bakens at 500 per, the shuriken at 150 per, kunai at 175 per and senbon at 125 per, then the large scrolls of sealing paper at 15,000 apiece, and then the ink at 2,000 a liter. Then the brushes and jars as 100 per set, brings the total to 3,040,000 ryo yen. Daichi said, running up the numbers. Anko blinked at the price thinking, holy shit, that's a lot of dango. Naruto looked to the third Hokage who smiled as he handed Naruto the card for his account. Naruto swiped it, and the man nodded. Naruto then gestured Jiji to lean down. Jiji, just how much is 5% of the Uzumaki clan account? The elderly Hokage smiled, before whispering something into Naruto's ear, making his eyes widen, and he mentally screamed, holy fuck, that's a whole lot of ramen. Scene break and time skip. Naruto sat across from his grandfather figure in his office, whose fists were clenched and shaking. Naruto had just told him about what was in the letter his 2 cent had left him, which told about what happened the night of the Kyubi attack, about how a man had appeared, killed his wife, and released the Kyubi upon the village. Naruto had been sitting for the past 10 minutes in silence as the old man went through the events and that Naruto had told him about. Finally, the man spoke. Thank you for telling me about this, Naruto-kun, your 2 cent was right to keep it from me, had I had known I would have chased the bastard to the ends of the elemental nations, I'm ashamed to say. I had always wondered what happened that night, now I know, you have done me a great kindness, Hiruzen said, his voice showing restraint from both anger and breaking down at that moment in tears. Naruto nodded, hearing the tone, you're welcome Jiji, if you want I can come back tomorrow or whenever you're feeling up to it and we can sort out my schedule then. The old Hokage shook his head, no, I'm fine my boy, thank you for your concern, but it's been so many years, the pain of the loss has numbed, now let's get to the criteria of what you want to learn over the next 3 weeks so we can get started on your schedule. Naruto nodded, knowing the old man was lying, that he just needed the distraction at the moment, so he would give him one, and this at the very moment just added another reason why Naruto would hunt down the bastard that did this and end him. Chapter 3. Naruto stretched out his arms in his nice new bed as the sun came in through the cracks in the bamboo Venetian blinds in Naruto's newly furnished bedroom. He had had it fully kitted out that day 3 weeks ago. He had a queen-size bed installed along with silk sheets and a fully wood frame with no footing, a shag rug over the solid wood flooring, 2 large wardrobes, one for shinobi clothing and the other for civilian. He stretched out his arms, happily feeling the weight on his chest. He looked to the still sleeping Anko, who was in a pair of purple silk pajamas. She had started sneaking over in the middle of the night 2 weeks ago, and after the first night, she had said she couldn't sleep without her cuddly Foxy-kun, which she had now made his nickname, whereas his for her was Hebe-Hime, after seeing her snakes for the first time when they trained. The first night she had snuck and she had slept in just her panties. This nearly made Naruto pass out from blood loss the morning he woke up. From then on he had insisted until they were both out of the academy she wear pajamas, they were still too young for things like that. She was going to disagree, but Ikko put her foot down and agreed with Naruto, saying it's either that or no Foxy-kun. Anko had agreed after that, knowing full well her sister can be just as scary and sadistic as her when she wants to be, and she paid the rent. She could always live with Naruto, but then it would have been his house and his rules, so she would have had to either way. Naruto smiled seeing her sleeping peacefully, but then he looked at the alarm clock, seeing it was 8 and the academy started at 10. So he decided to wake her up. Over the past 3 weeks, the two of them had gotten closer and were officially a couple, though their dinner dates were either they ate in or ate at either the Dango shop or at Chirikus Ramen. As no other restaurant would serve the Kyubi brat and the snake whore, but their first date had actually gone better than expected, and even more so that both the stores were across the street from one another. Flashback. Naruto sat down with Anko at Ichirikus with a smile, hey Tuchi Oji, how's you? Naruto greeted the ramen chef as he came out of the back. He wore an all-white chef's outfit with a small hat on his head with the kanji for ramen on it. Tuchi smiled seeing Naruto, Naruto-kun, I'm fine, haven't seen you in the past few days. Have you been busy? Naruto nodded, yay, moving into a new apartment and starting a training schedule before I start the academy in a few weeks' time. Things have been busy, to say the least. Hey, I'd like you to meet my friend Anko-chan, Naruto said, introducing Anko. Tuchi nodded to Anko with a smile, it's a pleasure to meet you Anko-chan, and it's nice to see Naruto-kun is making some friends. It's nice to meet you to Tuchi-san, Naruto-kun here had mentions your ramen is, and I quote, food of the gods, but I'm still skeptical, Anko greeted with a smirk. Tuchi smirked, oh, so it's Naruto-kun, is it? Well, this is interesting, Naruto, just wait until AM-chan gets an earful of that, you're in for a load of teasing you too. So you two dating yet? Both Anko and Naruto blushed red and Naruto started to stutter. Actually Tuchi Oji, this kind of is our first one, we're taking it slow. Gucci smiled at the blonde, I understand that Naruto, I'll tell AM-chan to keep it to a minimal, so what's this I hear about you doubting my ramen's reputation Anko-chan? Well it's just that, it's impossible for two foods to be the food of the gods. She said with a grin. Gucci crossed his arms, is that so, then do tell. What is it you believe can beat my ramen? Anko grinned, the food that tops all other, Dango. Gucci looked to Naruto, you brought a ramen virgin into my restaurant didn't you? Naruto nodded sadly, I've been trying to make her see the light for the past 2 days, but I can't get through to her, please help me oh ramen-sanin. Gucci nodded, do not worry my child, we shall show her the way of the righteous dish that is ramen. 3 Naruto specials coming up the proud chef said as he went into the back only to emerge moments later, with the 3 bowls setting them down, both Naruto and Tucci bowed to the bowls in respect. All praise the Ramen Kami-sama for what you are about to receive, for it is through him that we spread the word of the righteous ramen through the world, so that even more may enjoy its righteous ways. Amen. Anko just sweat dropped hearing the two of them, but thought in her head, how did they know the sacred prayer of the Dango Kami-sama? The 3 of them took up their chopsticks and started to eat, upon first taste Anko's eyes turned into stars, making both Tucci and Naruto smirk, but said nothing and kept eating, until all 3 bowls were empty. Anko felt back stars still in her eyes making Naruto and Tucci shake their heads. The first bowl is always the best, and the Naruto special has been perfected over 6 long years of trial and error until the Kami-sama of all ramen dishes had been perfected. It is the signature dish of this establishment if it cannot turn a ramen virgin into a ramen lover. Then nothing can and they are forever lost to the way of the ramen. Gucci said speaking in a tone sounding so much like a wise sage who has spent decades honing his mind instead of honing his ramen, which are but one and the same. After several moments Anko stood up still rather shaky on her feet, after sitting back on the stool and sipped a glass of water, she nodded slowly, that was something else, incredible, but there is only one way to be sure, I propose another taste test. Gucci and Naruto shared a look and nodded, Naruto spoke, very well Anko-chan we shall allow you your taste test on the sacred ground of the Ramen Kami-sama, and we shall see once and for all whose is the Kami-sama of foods. Anko slowly stumbled out the ramen bar and over across the street into the Dango store just across the way. After a few more moments she emerged carrying 4 boxes as she carried them with great care, behind her came a man wearing a similar outfit to Tucci, except it had the kanji for Dango on it. Entering the store both men stared off. So Tucci, seems you have been trying to convert one who is loyal to the joyous way of the Dango and turn her to the way of your slop, though she is of strong enough mind and faith to resist your temptations and submit the new chef spoke with a smirk. So you think your Dango can outdo that of the ramen kami do you, Teruo? Well we shall see, Naruto here is one of the most faithful in the ways of the ramen, and so he will prove you wrong, as will I Tucci challenged. Both men started glaring at each other as sparks started to fly, and both teenagers sweat dropped looking at the grown men acting like children. After a few moments they all took a seat with the Dango in front of them, both Anko and Teruo put their hands together and bowed. All praise the Dango Kami-sama for what you are about to receive, for it is through his grace that we spread the word of the joyous Dango through the world, so that even more may enjoy its joyous light. Amen. Both Tucci and Naruto blinked, it's the ramen prayer to the Ramen Kami-sama, what could this mean? All 4 of them lifted up their first Dango sticks and took the first Dango, and just as Anko before him Naruto's eyes lit up, after swallowing the first bite, Naruto set the stick down, his body shaking, both he and Tucci share a look the look of realization, they have found the Naruto's special final ingredient, getting up Tucci moves to the back. Teruo smirking, what's wrong can't handle the joyous experience that is my Dango. Anko looks to Naruto, who is still shaking. She smirked remembering her first bite, it was joy on a stick. Moments later Tucci comes out of the back with 4 bowls of Naruto ramen, setting them down, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but for the past 3 years after perfecting the masterpiece that is the Naruto special, I believe your Dango might actually be the missing taste, this bowl covers every taste, but the ramen in this bowl is an explosion of righteous flavors and textures. But your Dango is what it needs. Teruo looked at his counterpart chef and saw no deception there was only one thing for it, let us see then. Everyone took a separate bowl and pushed a Dango dumpling to the top of their sticks before dipping it into the juice of the ramen, lifting it out all 4 looked at the Dango in front of them before putting it into their mouths. The result was all 4 passing out from their taste buds overloading and frying their brains as steam shot out their ears in the shape of Dango and ramen. That night Ramen and Dango met it was a righteous and joyous day for the 4 of them. The world would never be the same. Flashback end. The past 3 weeks had honestly been the happiest 3 weeks of Naruto's life, he had a girlfriend, he was starting the academy, he found out who his parents were, he had a new apartment, and his training couldn't be going better. At night 3 weeks back he and the old Hokage had put together a solid training regimen for Naruto, which has only improved over the 3 weeks as he grows stronger and more training is needed. He even had Ikgao and Hade as instructors. They helped him to get a better grasp of his chakra control, ninjutsu and kinjutsu. 7:30 Wake up, shower, get dressed, eat a big breakfast. 9 o'clock head to reserve training ground to meet Ikgao sensei and Hade sensei. 9:15 Distribute 600 clones. 200 chakra control, 100 tree climbing and 100 leaf exercise. 15 ninjutsu basic, 325 henge, 25 substitution, 0 clone not needed. 100 on advanced ninjutsu, 50 shunshin, 25 Kage shuriken and 25 Kage kunai. Reinforced 40 kinjutsu to jutsu, 20 stances and 20 sparring. 100 on kinjutsu practice. 20 library to read up on new topics. 90 on shuriken, senbon, kunai target practice. 9:30 1300 hours warm-up period, 5 laps of the village, 200 push-ups, 200 leg-ups, 200 squats, 200 kicks both feet, 200 punches both hands. 1300 hours, 14:15 lunch. 14:15 1600 hours, kinjutsu to jutsu sparring with Hade sensei physical training. 1600 hours 1745, kinjutsu to jutsu sparring with Ikgao sensei physical training. 1745, 1930 dinner. 1930 2030 dispel chakra clones in batches of 10 every few minutes. 2030 2115 dispel ninjutsu clones in batches of 10 every few minutes. 2115 2230 dispel rest of clones every few minutes. 2230 to 2300 hours rest and get ready for bed. In that 20-day period, Naruto and Anko had trained each for 210 hours roughly, though in actual spec with Naruto's 600 clones a day had put in 42,000 hours of chakra control practice. He could now balance a leaf on his forehead and up to 1 meter off it for up to 3 hours. He had mastered the tree climbing exercise. He could stand upside down on the bottom of a tree branch for 5 hours. On the 3rd week, he had begun water walking and even managed to last up to an hour on top of the water. 5,250 hours into each of the ninjutsu basics of henge and substitution. He could now substitute without the use of a hand sign and perform a flawless henge, although, due to the Kickbus chakra, it was discovered that Naruto henge isn't an illusions, but it had in actual solid forms after the Hokage was informed about it. He dubbed the new jutsu the perfect henge and listed it as a B-class ninjutsu. 10,500 hours on shunshin and another 5,250 hours into both Kage shuriken and Kage kunai, resulting in Naruto being able to shunshin 50 yards in a second. He could keep up with low Jumnin speeds with that level of skill, and with both Kage techniques, Naruto had mastered them to an extent of only needing one hand sign. The clones practiced kinjutsu and taijutsu for 4,002 hours each, and he himself had put in 35 hours each practice. He now had the stances of his Ka-san's kinjutsu stances learned perfectly and the academy basic taijutsu down so well. The Hokage had given him the scroll to his clan's taijutsu style known as the swirling waves. He had been studying it for the past week but still wasn't confident enough in it to use it yet. He had put 21,000 hours into his kinjutsu, at which he had breezed through the first book after spending the first 3 days 3150 hours with his clones, making his handwriting perfect, which is required for any sealing master. Then the next 5 days they had spent working on the seals the first book showed until they had the skill to create them in under 30 seconds. As a result, before he moved on to the next book and then the next book, within the 3 weeks, 20 days. He had cleared the 3 beginners' books of kinjutsu and was able to make each seal in 30 seconds solid. As a result, he had amassed quite the stockpile of seals due to that fact, though they were only the basics. Book 1. Beginner. 1. Covered the history of kinjutsu and kinjutsu 101 the facts. It then taught how to make storage seals for scrolls small and medium sizes, smoke seals for small smoke bombs, and distraction level explosive tags, and taught Naruto how to make his own chakra ink for his seals. Book 2. Beginner. 2. Taught how to make large storage seals, medium smoke seals and medium strength explosive tags, how to make small chakra storage seals, and then how to merge 2 seals together like the smoke and explosive to do both tasks. After completing that book in the week, the Hokage had shown the boy how to create privacy seals which were used around his office. He also showed him how to create sound restriction seals that are applied to shinobi when they need to be quiet and can be controlled by a simple hand sign and only requires paper tags. Book 3. Beginner. 3. Taught the final and smoke seals large and extra large. Then explosive tags large and chakra storage seals medium and started on chakra type storage seals small for different natures of chakra and then learning how to merge 3 seals into one, like 3 large explosive tags make for one big boom. But the Hokage had informed him that anything over medium was not allowed for use in the village, and he must have written permission as is the law, so he sent his clones out of the village for a test run, and he was right, it made for one big boom, and he now knew what it was like to be blown up from 5 different perspectives without actually being there. Realizing the boy needed to keep his home and work secure, the Hokage taught the boy how to create blood lock seals, meaning they needed a blood smear to gain access to what the lock was on. But the kicker to getting the last beginner's book was it came with instructions on how to apply restriction and weight seals, which he learned how to do after he requested the Hokage to apply them to him for his 3rd week of training. He now had 50 pounds on each limb and another 100 pounds on his chest with a level 2 restriction seal on his back, which he released every 2 days for an hour to get used to the feeling. In the beginning, it was 20 pounds on each limb and 40 pounds on the chest at level 1, but in that week his body had adjusted in 3 days, and he added to them, now carrying 300 pounds, and with the increase of a level 2 restriction seal on his chest, which gives the feeling of pushing through heavy water, helping his muscles to grow more. As for the rest of his skills, he now was able to hit a moving target at 50 yards 7 out of 10 times, preferring Senbon to anything else after putting in 18,900 hours target practice with his clones. The clones he had sent to the library every day had direct orders to stop reading at 2100 hours and return to the apartment before dispelling. The last thing they needed was the librarian complaining about the demon brat using jutsu in the library. She had already been ordered not to complain by the Hokage, but 20 clones all going poof would just piss her off. In the 20 days each clone had read a book a day, meaning in 20 days he had read over 400 books and had built up quite the mass of knowledge from reading them, from everything from battle tactics to history of the elemental nations and the shinobi wars, to learning the basics of how to hunt and fish and live in the wilderness, and also how to grow his own fruit and vegetables, learning the natural geography of the land of fire, and then, as the Hokage suggested, learn of the politics and laws of the village and how to get around them. After finishing those books in the first 2 weeks, he then started to read books on more standard skillsets like carpentry, plumbing, electric wiring, carpet fitting, boiler repair, roofing, cleaning, general handyman things, and then how to manage a business and all the necessary books on running a hotel or apartment lot. He had decided while he was either at the academy or training, he would be having his clones fix up his old apartment building, completely renovated, and before renting the rooms for either nights or long-term leases, he needed to find some way to keep money flowing. He may have been filthy rich, but he wanted a business, and he didn't want to just skate by on his clan's money like the Uchiha boy, who had everything laid at his feet. He swore he wouldn't be like that. 2 days left in his training, he had started to learn the first of his clan's jutsu. He had decided to go with the fire-style jutsu, as he wanted something with a little kick to it. Neither Ikka-sensei or Heiichi-sensei had enough chakra to do it, and their attempts could only produce a smaller version of the attack, but when Naruto did it, the attack was ferocious. The technique was called Uzumaki Kaiten. Kasai Hakushu Uzumaki Fire Release. Fire Clap. Building up mass amounts of fire chakra into your hands and then bringing them together in a clap, causing a fiery explosion in front of the user like a Merlin 1D rocket engine that burned for over 20 seconds. The result was so great it incinerated a 30-meter-long 4-5-degree arc in front of Naruto. Lucky the Hokage had wanted to witness the jutsu's first attempt, so he set up a barrier around the training field in case something should go wrong. After the jutsu's first attempt, Naruto's hands had 3rd-degree burns from not using enough chakra for protection from the fire, but the Kikba's chakra had healed him 5 minutes later. After seeing the technique strength currently, the Hokage listed it as an A+ rank jutsu and forbid Naruto from using it and any other Uzumaki jutsu in any fight until he became a genin, and to use only 5% of the chakra he just used if he was fighting a shinobi from this village in a spar. Naruto understood why. If the other 4 jutsu were as strong as this, he would kill any opponent that was hit by the full force of the attack. But now today was the first day in the academy. He had heard from the Hokage that he was in a good year with all the clans having children attending the same year as him, so he would have multiple strong peers to learn beside, along with some promising civilian students, which he was happy about. But what was really shocking that just the other night, the night before his last day of training, he had found himself in his mindscape. First he had thought it a dream, but he quickly realized it wasn't. Flashback. Naruto woke in a sewer. Looking around, he saw he was lying on a thin coating of water. Not wanting to get wet, he stood up and looked around, but as he did he heard a sound coming from not too far off. He sharpened his senses and could make out that of someone crying. Following the sound, he came to a large cage with a paper tag over the lock with a kanji for seal on it. Realizing where he was, he walked up to the cage where he heard the sound coming from. He looked inside, still cautious about what might be inside, expecting a massive claw to swipe at him any moment. He was shocked when he saw no massive fox inside, but a small form of someone inside curled up into a ball crying, muttering I'm sorry over and over again. Walking into the cage, still cautious, he approached the figure shocked to see it was a girl with long crimson hair down to the base of her back, about his age. She wore filthy rags over her that looked like they had once been beautiful clothes, long since destroyed and faded by time. Hearing his footsteps, the girl looked up at him. He saw her deep red eyes that were puffy with tears. Seeing him, she gasped before quickly bowing on her hands and knees to him, screaming out loud, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's all my fault, please forgive me, I never wanted this for anyone. And then proceeding to cry I'm sorry over and over again, making Naruto's eyes widen. What is she talking about? What is going on? Wait a minute, we're in the cage, in me, the only other thing that's meant to be in here is the kekkei, Naruto said, softly before he took a step back from her, you're the kekkei no kitsune, aren't you? The girl continued to cry, but nodded, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Looking at the girl, Naruto grew more confused. The kekkei no kitsune was meant to be a massive beast of destruction and devastation that was meant to make mountains topple with a single tail and create lakes with a footstep. Yet here was this girl that couldn't even be older than him, crying and begging for his forgiveness. None of this made sense. The girl in front of him was crying still, but swallowing his fear, he walked towards the girl and knelt down to her. Please don't cry, he said softly as he put his hand on her shoulder, making her flinch from the contact. You're the kekkei, aren't you? The girl's nodded head still bowed, but Naruto shook his head, putting his hand under her chin and bringing her up to meet his eye. Please talk to me, you're the kekkei, aren't you? She nodded again. Hi, Naruto-sama, I am. Bringing up another question with the sama honorific, why do you call me sama, and why are you crying? She looked away from him before answering, I'm the reason your life is like it was and still is, I'm the reason the villagers hate you. I'm the reason you were beaten multiple times a week and the reason your parents are dead. I've ruined the life of someone so innocent that didn't deserve it. It should be me they glare at, me they beat. I should be the one to suffer, not you. Naruto was taken back by the whole statement. This can't be the kekkei, this isn't right. How can you be the same kekkei that attacked the village so mercilessly 12 years ago, that took the lives of over a third of the village? How is any of this happening? It's all my fault for not resisting the extraction and genjutsu more. It's all my fault that this happened, the girl said painfully. Hearing that, Naruto's eyes widened. Extraction, genjutsu, what? The kekkei started to cry. I was ripped from your Ka-sanmai, the man in the mask, and placed under a genjutsu the night of your birth. The one in the mask ordered me to attack your village. I tried to resist, but it didn't work, and I just kept on attacking. Even after the man's control fell, I was still trapped until your 2 cents sealed me. I would never have attacked otherwise. Us foxes are pranksters and jokers. We hate violence, unless it is to protect our own. We would never attack anyone. Naruto's legs gave way beneath him halfway through the conversation. The man in the mask, he was behind it all. His parents and Jiji's wife's deaths, the whole kekkei attack, it was him behind it all. He was the reason he was hated, he was the reason for his pain, it was all him. Snapping back to the scene in front of him, the girl, kekkei, was crying again. Naruto realized none of this was her fault and quickly embraced the poor crying girl in a hug, making her immediately stop crying. It's okay, it's alright. None of his is your fault, he said softly to her. The kekkei's eyes widened hearing that. How could he have forgiven her so quickly? All the pain he's endured because of her. Why? How? It didn't make sense to her. Why? She said softly, just enough for him to hear, but before he could respond she pushed him away to arm's length. Why can you forgive me so easily? I'm the reason for all your suffering and pain. I'm the reason behind it all. You should hate me, you should. Slap. The sound echoed in the cage. The girl felt a burning sensation on her cheek. He had slapped her. He had just slapped the kekkei no kitsune, and now everyone in the audience is thinking, damn, dude's got some balls on him. She looked back at him to see his face filled with rage, his eyes red in slits as he glared at her. The first thing that ran through her mind that it had all been an act, and now he was going to take his revenge on her over and over again and again, and she would accept it. But that was why the next words that came out of his mouth were so shocking. No, you're not, that bastard in the mask is, he's the one who has done all of this. It's his fault, not yours. You're just a victim like me, like the rest of the village, it's all his fault. Naruto yelled. Hearing him yell, she just couldn't help but break down in tears once more. She lunged for him, hugging him, crying into his shoulder, thank you over and over again, bawling like a little girl. Blinking, his eyes faded back to their usual blue, and after a few moments Naruto slowly lowered himself to the ground as her legs gave way and they both sat down, her still hugging and crying into him. He let her cry it out. After a few minutes she finally stopped crying and was just hugging him, but she was now asleep. They just lay there, he wasn't sure what to do or say. He had a girl who was the kekkei on his chest. What would you do? But he soon felt the tug of morning coming on his body and he was going to be waking soon, so gently shaking her to wake her up she stirred. Hey, wake up, I need to go. Blinking awake, she opened her eyes and saw Naruto. She nodded, getting up. Hi, Naruto-sama. He shook his head, you don't have to call me that, you know I don't blame you for my life, so just call me what you want. Hi, Naruto-sama, she said again making him sigh. Anything other than that? Hey, speaking of names, what do I call you anyway? I highly doubt a being that's been around for centuries has gone without a name, and I doubt it's Kekkei no Kitsune, Naruto asked with a smirk. Slowly she nodded, hi, my name is Akane, Naruto-sama. Naruto shook his head with a slight smile, very well then, Akane-chan he said, making her blush at the affectionate suffix, I've got to be going now, so I guess I'll see you in my next dream. Akane stepped forward, actually Naruto-sama, if you want to see me all you have to do is meditate, it will bring you here so we can talk, or you can rip the bottom corner of the tag over the lock and we can converse mentally anytime, you can of course close the link anytime. Naruto nodded, thanks, I'll do that on the way out, he said before looking around, has this place always been such a dump? Akane nodded her head, all the beatings you took made it this way. A dark outlook makes for a dark mind. Naruto frowned, well I'll fix that for you on my next visit, but now I can feel Anko-chan starting to wake me up, so I've got to go, he said, walking towards the cage and jumping up ripping the bottom corner of the tag off just before he disappeared. Chapter 4. Slowly Naruto put his hand on Anko's shoulder and shook her, come on Hibiheim, it's time to get up to get ready for the academy. Anko's face scrunched up as she buried her face into Naruto's hard chest, mumbling, I don't want to. Naruto smirked at his girlfriend's antics as he ran his hand through her hair, come on Hibiheim, it will be fun, we get to destroy some gakkis, he said in a sing-song voice that sent a shiver down Anko's spine in a good way, she looked up into his blue eyes. Can I feed them to my snakes? She asked licking her lips. Naruto shook his head, sadly no Heim, but you can threaten them with that and watch as they piss themselves in fear, and I suppose a little scratch or two to put the fear in them wouldn't hurt. Anko pouted hearing that she couldn't feed her snakes the gakkus, but smiled thinking she could at least have a little fun, that her boyfriend would let her. She was normally the dominant type and she was with most other people, but over the past 3 weeks she had found herself rather submissive to Naruto, she didn't mind. He still let her have plenty of fun, and their little session last week when she let him be dominant was very enjoyable, they didn't go all the way only groping through clothes, but he was good, so she would gladly submit to him for the pleasure. But there was another thing, she was honestly a little scared of Naruto's strength and skill. The Hokage said that if it wasn't due to the laws he had set about the age of becoming a shinobi, he would have already made Naruto a genin. But the law stated he had to pass the academy test after 4 years and be 16. That and the fact that the ever so honorable civilian council would never allow the demon brat to become a genin like that, they didn't have any say in the matter, but they would throw a major fit about it and bury the old man in mountains of paperwork that not even Kage Bunshin could get him out of. He really couldn't be hassled with that and he wanted his grandson to enjoy his childhood for a bit longer yet. Anko could understand the man's reasoning, but it still didn't change the fact that Naruto had more skill than anyone in the academy and he hadn't even attended day 1 yet. Anko sighed, fine, I guess that will do. She said before pulling herself up and giving her boyfriend a chastity kiss on the lips, I'll take the shower first, you get started on breakfast. Naruto nodded at his girlfriend as they got up walking past each other, Anko reached for Naruto and gave his backside a squeeze, I'm so glad I saved that work of art. Naruto shook his head and before she was out of arm's reach he gave her backside a little slap making her jump, careful Heim, 2 can play that game. He chuckled leaving Anko blushing like mad, he had beat her and teasing again and that was just one of the reasons she loved him. Scene break. Naruto stood in front of the mirror in his bedroom finishing applying the last of his outfit on him, he grinned looking in the mirror, well Akane-chan, what do you think? Naruto asked aloud with a smirk. Akane blushed in Naruto's mind looking through his eyes, very nice Naruto-sama, I'm sure you'll have a great first day. She said aloud through the seal, which had been part of what changed when Naruto had torn the seal when he came out the first time allowing her to speak through the seal. Naruto grinned, only to feel 2 arms snake around his midsection before he heard a voice behind him, the redhead's right, very nice indeed, and you're all mine. Anko smirked hugging Naruto's back. As she said that Naruto could mentally feel Akane frown slightly in his mindscape but brushed it off as nothing as he turned to see Anko wearing the outfit she had chosen a week back when Naruto had gone to pick up his Ka-san's katana, he had bought it for her, saying she looked great in it, he was right. She wore a fitted mesh bodysuit that stretches from her neck down to her thighs, but with dark orange wrappings around her bust, saying she may want to look good, but that area was for Foxy-kun only, a dark orange miniskirt, a dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. She had her own version of Naruto's trench coat, only it was tan not black, but had the same seals. And adorned as always was the snake fang pendant around her neck. Naruto had asked about it and she had said it was the only thing her old sensei ever gave her and it served as a reminder of a promise that she would kill her former sensei for betraying her and branding her with this curse mark. Naruto had seen the curse mark the second week and had said that he wouldn't rest until he found a way to remove it. He asked her to be patient, that he would find a way, and she held him to it, knowing he never went back on his word. "You look beautiful, my Haim," Naruto said, kissing her lips, gently wrapping his arms around her waist and holding her gently, making her smirk. "You ready for today, Naru-kun?" Anko asked with a smirk on her lips. Naruto chuckled, "Yeah, I'm ready. I've been looking forward to this day for the past 3 weeks. I know I'm more than strong enough. This academy is going to be a walk in the park for me. The only hard part will be having to spend time away from you, Haim," he said as he pulled their embrace into a hug. Anko smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I know, Naru-kun, I know, but we can make up for it after class. Remember, Ikgaoni-sensei said we have Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays off physical training, so we can have some fun and enjoy our youth, as Hokage Jiji says." In the past 3 weeks, Anko had been training alongside Naruto. When Naruto wasn't training with one of their senseis, she was. She even joined the clones in for target and jutsu practice, seeing as she could only make a maximum of 2 clones before being completely drained. She couldn't use it to train as Naruto could, which she was disappointed in, but didn't let it get to her. Over those 3 weeks with the Hokage's regular visits, she had become somewhat of a granddaughter to him, like Naruto was a grandson, even going so far as to call him Jiji, which made the old man smile at the fact. Anko had been lucky enough that her ex-sensei had been in such a rush to get out of the village that he had left copies of his snake jutsu scrolls behind, which the Sandame had found, and had decided to give them to Anko, as she was the only snake user left in the village. She hadn't been thrilled about learning the bastard's techniques, but she decided to make use of them, seeing as she was a snake user. Breaking off from the hug, the two of them shared a brief kiss before walking for the door, Naruto picking up his black bakken as he walked. It had been one that he had had custom made by Daichi. The whole thing was made from chakra metal. It was blunt, but when Naruto channeled his chakra into it, it would cut as good as a katana would. After Naruto had it made, the Hokage had taken the liberty to applying 3 seals to it, all of which Naruto recognized. There was a storage seal on the hilt holding 50 kunai for quick access. The second one Naruto only partially recognized because he had started to learn the weaker version of it. It was a strengthening and reinforcement seal that provided SS plus rank protection, meaning that it would be strong enough to take a hell of a lot of damage and still not even chip. He was learning the weaker C rank version of the seal, but the base array was the same, that is why he recognized it. The third seal activated the second Naruto lifted it. It was a resistant seal, making the blade heavier in Naruto's hands, but not physically heavier, meaning it took more effort to lift and swing, but it helped him develop the proper muscles for when he wielded a blade without the seals. The bakken also had a protection seal on it, which gave anyone a nasty chakra burn should they touch it without Naruto saying so. The restriction and protection seals were linked to a mental control seal placed behind Naruto's right ear, so he can control them at any time. Taking the bakken, he slotted it into the loop on the side of his Anbu trousers as they walked out of the apartment. The Hokage had asked him not to use his Kasen's blade in public, as it would cause them both a headache should anyone recognize it. That's why he had the bakken made. Naruto locked the door and activated the blood seal before wrapping his arm around Anko's waist, and then both of them disappeared into a red and purple leaf shunshin. Scene break. Naruto walked up to the classroom door he had been assigned to, having already parted with Anko at the main desk for her to go to her third-year class. He knew they couldn't be in the same class, even though his skill was enough to have him advance years ahead of his age group. But again, the council would go against it, and Jiji still wanted him to have as much of a childhood as possible, so he would just have to make do. Opening the door, he went into the classroom. The room was a standard square room with 3 rows of seats wide, climbing at a vertical angle up the back of the room. There were others his age in the room already seated and others standing around talking. Naruto didn't really recognize any of them, except for 1 or 2. Kiba Inuzuka, his attire consisted of dark grayish pants reaching to his calves and a gray, hooded fur-lined coat, with a hood placed on his head, over an apparent plate of armor and fishnet undershirt, with his ninhound Akamaru on his head under the hood. Akamaru was a small white pup, with brown ears, no bigger than a cat. But he would grow to be the size of a small horse from what Naruto had seen. The two of them knew each other from a week back when Hana, Kiba's older sister, had come looking for Ikgao, having not seen her best friend in 2 weeks. When Ikgao had told Hana that she was training Naruto under orders of the Hokage, Hana had suggested that they take the training to the Inuzuka compound, that there was plenty of room there, while the clone trained here. Needless to say, she had been shocked seeing so many clones, but knew the boy was the kekkei container, but didn't hold it against him as like many of her clan. They accepted the invitation and went. There Naruto and Anko met Kiba and his mother Tsume Inuzuka. The woman was extremely blunt, just like Hana, but Naruto and Anko liked her. Kiba was at first a thick-headed idiot, but after a spar with Naruto one-on-one, getting his ass kicked in 30 seconds flat made him change his tune, and Tsume, Hana and Anko nearly bust a gut laugh their asses off. Naruto and Kiba had become good friends that day, they had even hung out a few times while Naruto was having lunch. Sume had said Naruto and Anko were always welcome at the Inyazuka compound, that anyone that can kick Kiba's ass like that are great company. The only other one Naruto recognized was Hinata Hyuga. She had dark blue hair which she had cut in a short leveled Haim cut style just above her forehead, with chin-length strands framing her face. She wore a cream-colored hooded jacket with a fire symbol on the upper right and left sleeves and fur around the cuffs and hem, with navy blue pants. The only reason he recognized her was from 4 years back when he was little, he had seen her in the local park while she was getting picked on by some local bullies 2 years older than them. He had defended her and ended up getting the crap kicked out of him for it. After beating him the bullies had just left, not even looking back. Hinata had come over to him and thanked him for helping her, apologizing for not being strong enough to do it herself. He had told her he had had worse beatings, she was confused by that and was about to help him, but then the Hyuga guard had come back from his break and took her away, saying someone of her class shouldn't associate herself with someone like him. Naruto frowned at the memory, realizing now what the man was referring to when he said someone like him, he had meant the container of the kekkei. Boy, wouldn't they be surprised to learn the whole thing was controlled from the shadows by someone who had a Sharingan. Yes, that had been the fact Kane had told Naruto during his meeting with the Hokage, he had wanted all the information she could give him on the man, believing her fully about being controlled, she had mentioned how he had cursed Red Eye with 3 tomos in it. The Hokage had recognized the eyes immediately and informed them it was the Jutsu of the Uchiha clan, which had been massacred 6 years earlier by one of its own, leaving only one of them alive, but had put him in a coma that had lasted 3 months. Naruto's eyes scanned the classroom at that thought and he stopped when he saw who he was looking for, Sasuke Uchiha, the last Uchiha. He had black eyes and spiky black hair with a blue tint. He wore a navy blue short-sleeved shirt with a high collar, white shorts, and white arm warmers, but none of that caught his eye more than the way his hair was styled, looking at it from the side, looked like a duck had nestled in his hair and had buried its head, leaving only its butt sticking out the back, duck butt. Naruto had to hold in a laugh as he thought about that, but then he noticed something else. About 50% of the girls in the class were looking at Sasuke with hard eyes, and the other 50 were looking at him with the same eyes, he had to blink once or twice, but then sighed, great fangirls, thought Naruto as he walked to his seat, Anko-chan is going to love this when she finds out. She may even try to feed them to her snakes. As Naruto sat down he noticed more than just the girls' eyes on him, he had drawn a few boys' attention also, the Uchiha in particular, as he watched him walk to his seat. Naruto felt his gaze, well it was more like a glare. He didn't know what the Uchiha's problem was, he had just walked in. Sure, he felt bad for the guy being in the same boat with no living family, but unlike Naruto, the council, the civilian side at least, worshipped the ground the last Uchiha walked on, giving him everything he wanted training, he got it, he wanted jutsu, he got it. He wanted weapons, he got it, he was left wanting for nothing. The Hokage had explained that they did it to keep him happy, so he wouldn't leave the village and take his clan Jutsu with him, some wanted him to marry their daughters, so they could have a piece of the large Uchiha fortune. Yes, the old man had explained the Croc Clan Restoration Act to Naruto after he had read about it, one of those days his clones were studying the village's laws. It allowed the last member of a clan to take on multiple spouses to restore said clan. It worked well for the last males of the clan, but the females were turned into breeding stock if that was the case. But that was the way of the world they lived in. Naruto had been explained that he would fall under the act as the last member of the Uzumaki clan and that he would have to take on multiple wives when he became a shinobi, 5 at the minimum. Anko had been annoyed at that point and was actually ready to castrate the old man for the fact, but Naruto had calmed her down and told her no matter what he would always love her. She had settled after that and accepted the way things were and she was willing to share considering she got a say in who the wives were. Naruto had agreed, knowing that was the only way they would both be happy. Now Naruto sat being eyed like a piece of meat in a lion's den, but the fact he was the last of a clan was still secret. Naruto could only begin to imagine what it would be like when it became public knowledge that he could take on 5+ wives. He would be eaten alive, and not in a fun way. Sighing again, he shook his head just as he heard the door to the classroom opening again. In walked a man of average height and build with brown hair tied back in a ponytail, dark eyes and a scar that ran across the bridge of his nose, wearing the standard Konoha shinobi outfit, complete with forehead protector, sandals, and flak jacket. His sleeves were also rolled up about 1/4 the way up his arms. He walked to the front of the room, and the other students took that as their hint to take their seats. As they did, the second man walked into the room. He wore the same clothing as the first man, but he had white shoulder-length hair with a slight hint of blue to it and green eyes, with pale perfect skin. Naruto smirked looking at both of them. Well, you can easily tell the one with the scars has had more experience than the one with perfect skin and conditioned silver hair. The one with the scar spoke first. "Good morning, welcome to your first day as academy students. My name is Iruka Yamino, and this is my assistant Mizuki. For the next 4 years, we will be your instructors in all things shinobi related. Now since this is the first day we will be having a class tournament to set the baseline and class rankings which will be changing throughout your 4 years here. We will be having a kunai and shuriken throwing tournament at the school range and a taijutsu tournament out on the school practice field. But first we will be going to have a demonstration period to give some of you the chance to show off a little, but first, roll call." Iruka finished as he lifted the paperboard off his desk as he cleared his throat. "Shino Aburum." Present came a voice over Naruto's shoulder. Naruto casually glanced at the boy. He was fair-skinned from what Naruto could see, that is, he had dark bushy brown hair and dark narrow eyes, wearing a pair of dark sunglasses and a sea green jacket with a high upturned collar. Naruto knew of the Aburum clan. The clans of Konoha were in some of the books his clones read. The Aburum clan was one of the 4 noble clans of Konohagakure. At birth, members of the clan were offered to several special breeds of insects as a nest, residing just under their host skin. These insects will then live in symbiosis with their host from that point on. Because of this, its members are characterized by their use of insects as weapons. The whole process seemed rather disturbing to Naruto, but he wasn't one to judge. One other thing to mention, the entire clan barely spoke, though when they did speak they were highly intelligent, often well versed in politics and matters of the like. Iruka gave a nod. "Chimjai Akimichi." "Munch here, Munch," came a voice on the other side of Naruto. Doing the same, he glanced to see the source. The source was a plump boy who wore black shorts, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved green haori, over a light green shirt with the kanji for food SS on it, small, hoop earrings, and his legs and forearms were wrapped in bandages. His forehead protector was styled in a manner that allowed 2 tufts of brown hair to poke out at each side. He was also stuffing his face with potato crisps in the middle of class. The Akimichi were one of the other clans of Konoha. Members of the clan possess great physical strength and were able to quickly convert calories into chakra, which they then use in their various secret techniques. Most of these techniques rapidly consume the user's chakra during use, and maintaining them during a prolonged battle can be tiring. For this reason, the Akimichi have high chakra levels and eat a lot in order to build up or replenish their chakra reserves. One of the key things you should never do is call an Akimichi fat. It will never end well for that person. Iruka sighed. "Please keep the eating for lunch and break." "Sakura Haruno." "Present." Came a girl's voice from the far side of the room. Naruto turned his gaze to it for a brief second. It was a girl with bright pink long hair down past her shoulders. She wore a red kippao dress with white circular designs, with short sleeves and zipper, tight dark green bike shorts, standard ninja sandals. Seeing the pink hair and hearing the name Haruno told Naruto all he needed to know. Haruno was a civilian family name, not a shinobi clan, though they have been trying for that status for years. Though to be even considered you have to have a shinobi in the family, and they had none, though not from a lack of trying. Ibuki Haruno, Sakura's mother, was on the civilian council, and if what the Hokage had told him about her mother was anything to go by, she would be a pain in the ass and the ear. Iruka nodded. "Hinata Hikta." "The present," stuttered Hinata. Iruka smiled lightly. "Kiba and Yuzuka." "You're called Kiba." Both Kiba and Naruto exchanged glances and nods of respect as friends. Following the list, Iruka called the next name, Shikamaru Nara. Here came a lazy voice. Naruto just shook his head and glanced at the lazy genius. His attire was rather plain, consisting of a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, adorned on both the sleeves and the back with a circle with a line through it. Naruto had seen him around also, mostly cloud watching or beating older shinobi at shogi. You'd think they'd know never to challenge a member of Konoha's smartest clans to a strategy game. It was because of its strategic value that Naruto had had his clones read every guide and book of the game they could find and learn the game back to front. He was going to be asking Ikgao-sensei and Heiate-sensei if he could add it to his training schedule for strategy and planning purposes. And assign 50 or so clones to it. The Nara clan were hailed as the smartest clan in Konoha for many reasons, one being their in-depth knowledge of the forests, grasslands and wildlife, mainly the Nara deer or Rikimaru, which inhabit the Nara forest. The second being for their mastery of the Yun releaser intel, more specifically their shadow jutsu, allowing them to manipulate their own shadows as a method of attack or restraint. It was even rumored that even a Nara child as young as 6 has an IQ of 180, which would be great if all the males weren't all dead lazy and had to be nagged by their wives or mothers to do anything for longer than 60 seconds that doesn't involve sleeping or watching the clouds, everything else they find too troublesome to do. Iruka sighed looking back to the noteboard. "Sasuke Uchiha." And grunted, the Uchiha still brooding. Iruka rolled his eyes. "Naruto Uzumaki." "I'm here, sensei." Naruto called with arms crossed as he caught the glare from the assistant Mizuki. "Yeah, please try something, you prick." I'll enjoy kicking your ass. Iruka smirked, Ino Yamanaka. Present came a perky voice from the front right of the room. Naruto raised his eyebrow at the bleached blonde ponytail of the girl. The fair-skinned girl of average height with greenish-blue eyes, her most noticeable trait in her appearance was her long, bleached blonde hair, which was in a high ponytail with bangs covering the right side of her face, wearing a pair of small silver hoop earrings and purple, fairly revealing clothing, consisting of a short purple vest-like blouse with a raised collar. A purple apron skirt that was cut up on the sides and bandages on her stomach and legs. She also wore purple and white elbow warmers with this. Hearing the name Yamanaka, Naruto raised an eyebrow, he knew that name. Of course, Inoichi Yamanaka was the Hokage's left hand with Shikaku Nara being his right. They were his advisors, both of which Naruto had met a few times. On top of that, Inoichi was part of the intel and torture division of the Anbu. Using the Yamanaka clan's mind jutsu, which allowed them to take control and even search their subjects' minds for intel. That was of course before and after the head torturer got done with them to loosen them up. The clan was also fairly skilled in botany and ran its own range of flower shops, on top of providing the shinobi with various poisons from the more deadly varieties of flowers. But then Naruto picked up on something. There was one member from each of the Nara clan, the Yamanaka clan, and the Akimichi clan in his class. Realizing what was going on, he smirked. The old man was training the next generation of the Inoshika CHM team. Those three clans have a long history of working together, and their combination attacks were legendary in the Shinobi Wars, and the current clan heads of those three clans were all on the same team when they were young, so the old man wants their kids to follow in their parents' footsteps. Naruto only chuckled at figuring out the old man's plans in less than a minute. As he did, Iruka called out the next name. Sai. There came a monotone voice which was devoid of all emotion. Naruto looked to its source, a boy with straight black hair and dark eyes, which contrasted with his translucent-looking pale skin. Wearing a short black and grey jacket with red straps, a high-collared midriff shirt, black pants, shinobi sandals and gloves with his index and thumb fingers exposed. Seeing the gloves, Naruto looked at them with interest. The thumb and index fingertips exposed meant it was likely to allow him more grip on something like a brush for genjutsu of something similar, and the lack of the last name made Naruto somewhat on edge. No last name meant no allegiances, and no allegiances means that he was a wild card that put Naruto off. He was an unknown, and Naruto didn't like unknowns. Setting down the noteboard, Iruka clapped his hands. Alright everyone, follow me and Mizuki out to the front practice fields. But that everyone made their way out following Iruka and Mizuki, Naruto the whole time pondering just who this Sai really was, while keeping both his eyes on him and the assistant Mizuki. He was clearly a Kyubi hater, so Naruto knew he would have to watch his back around the team and report him to the old man. Or he could have his fun and make the idiot see what happens when you mess with an Uzumaki. Oh, it would be glorious. Chapter 5. The entire class followed Iruka and Mizuki out to the practice yard where there were bleachers for watchers to sit down. Clearing his throat, Iruka turned to the class. Alright, is there anyone here that can give me a rundown on the separate skills a shinobi uses are called? He asked the class. The girl with the pink hair, Sakura, raised her hand and Iruka pointed to her. The main jutsu types are ninjutsu, which is a chakra-based attack of the sword by molding chakra by the use of hand signs. An extension of this is genjutsu, which is an illusion that traps the target in an illusion they think is real for a period of time by deceiving all five of the senses. Then there's taijutsu, which is the physical hand-to-hand combat part. Iruka smiles and nodded. Very good, Sakura, that's. Iruka was about to finish when he saw Naruto's hand go up. Something to add, Naruto? Naruto nodded. Hi sensei. Haruno-sen's explanation was correct, but was only a partial explanation of the skills a shinobi can possess. Adding to Haruno-san's explanation, ninjutsu as well as genjutsu can be divided into separate classes, rating the skill required to use them. Like shinobi missions, they follow the same ranking system, but with the addition of E for the academy level techniques, such as Bunshin, Henge and Kawarimi. The most difficult being that of the S-rank level. Furthermore, they can also be divided up into their elements such as Kaiten, Fire Release, Ton, Wind Release, Raiten, Lightning Release, Doten, Earth Release and Suiten, Water Release. In addition to that, those with the correct Kage Genkai or bloodline limit can merge two or more elements to create sub-elements, such as the merging of Suiten, Water Release and Ton, Wind Release to form Heimten, Ice Release or Doten, Earth Release and Suiten, Water Release to create Mokuten, Wood Release. As there are too many of them to mention, I will leave ninjutsu off there and expand further on taijutsu. Haruno-san was correct that it is the physical hand-to-hand part of the shinobi skill set. She neglected to expand on its other parts such as Bukijutsu. Weapon techniques, which entail the use of any handheld weapons in combat. For academy students, that would be shuriken jutsu, which is just a fancy way of saying throwing weapons like kunai or shuriken, or a more specialist skill such as kenjutsu. Sword technique, Naruto said as he tapped his Bakken hinting at it before continuing, then there's Tessenjutsu. The use of fans that is practiced in Suna, with their high wind affinity rates, Kickjutsu. The use of bow and arrows for long-range combat, Kusurigamajutsu. Chain sickle techniques, practiced by Handsome of the Salamander who defeated and spared the 3 Sannin in the Third Shinobi War, Keiakujutsu. Using explosives to fight, and finally, Jutsu. Staff techniques which is practiced by the Sarutobi clan or more specifically Sandaime Sama. Then there are the less practiced skills such as Genjutsu. Seal techniques, which the Yondaime was famous for as well as another clan lost to time. Everyone heard that clan reference and was curious as to who he was referring to, but he continued before they could ask. From it, you can expand to its less attractive side of Jujutsu, which means cursed techniques, but they fall under the category of Kenjutsu which means forbidden techniques. The only ones allowed to use them are the ones given permission to do so by the Kage of their village, in our case the Hokage. Then there's medical ninjutsu, which is a branch of ninjutsu associated with healing, as well as the manipulation of their own, or another's body. It's practiced by shinobi categorized as medical nin, who play a vital role in the battlefield, as well as frontline fighters. Here I will stop due to the fact that if I explain any more I will dive into deeper forms of skills, and if I did that we'd be here all month. Naruto finished with a grin. Finishing his explanation everyone was gaping at him blinking, well, except most of the clan heirs. Being from shinobi families most of them knew of the most detailed stuff, though some of it was interesting. There were those who weren't so impressed. Sasuke scoffed at his explanation and smirked, what good would any of that be to me against him, I must get stronger, while Sakura was red and pissed. How the hell does a clan less dope like you know all that? She yelled making Naruto and Kiba hold their ears in pain from the vocal assault on their sensitive hearing, while every else flinched from the screeching. Akamaru, Kiba's dog who was on his head, whimpered covering his ears with its paws. Shaking his head, Naruto trying to lessen the ringing in his ears before he sighed, last I checked Haruno-san your family isn't a clan either. Well I don't even have a family being an orphan, I do however spend a lot of time at the library reading when I'm not training. As I gestured to my Bakken, I study Kenjutsu and also Kenjutsu as 2 of my shinobi skills, so I knew about them already. But I don't limit myself to them knowledge-wise at least, it's always good to know what your opponent can throw at you in the middle of combat. Iruka nodded at Naruto's line of thinking, impressed that he had so much knowledge and it only his first day, while Mizuki could only glare, what the hell. The demon brat was meant to be stupid and clueless about anything and everything, last I checked the librarian didn't even let him 1 foot in the library, how did he get so smart? Iruka started applauding, very well explained Naruto, that was the kind of explanation that would be expected out of a Junin level shinobi. But I've got to ask, you've Kenjutsu and Kenjutsu, just what levels are you at with them? He asked as he raised an eyebrow. Naruto nodded hi sensei, according to my 2 senseis in Kenjutsu, who grade and supervise my training only as I am studying a form they are not practiced in, they gauge my skill at Lochiknin from my spars with them. I also study Taijutsu under them both, and I am already fluent in the academy-style stances and forms. Naruto said with a smile before continuing. Kenjutsu, as I mentioned, is a rarely practiced skill, so I have no sensei in that, and I am self-taught following the guides and such available to all. It is gauged on a level from 1 to 10 in skill 1 being a beginner and 10 being a seal master. The guides have their own grading criteria that is to pass a certain level you have to be able to create such a seal within such a length of time, graded by that way I am at 3, though Hokage-sama had my seals sent to a specialist to be examined and he finds them at the silk level of 4, I have just started book 4. Intermediate 1. Iruka's eyes widened slightly hearing that and had a smile on his face, that's very impressive Naruto for someone starting the academy without a clan, who are your senseis? Naruto bowed, my apologies Iruka-sensei, but I am not at liberty to give their names as they're teaching, and grading me is an ongoing S-rank assignment, and as such not to be discussed in detail without the Hokage's presence or permission. Iruka blinked hearing that, S-rank was the highest level of mission a shinobi can be given, his senseis must have been either Junin rank or higher to receive that kind of mission, but just what about it made it S-rank, teaching a single student couldn't be any higher than a C or B rank mission, C being the more likely. Unless the Hokage wanted to give the senseis a way to hide their identities to avoid threats to stop, and given that Naruto was the container of the Kyubi that was more than likely. Iruka nodded accepting the answer and was about to say as such when Sakura interrupted again. What a load of rubbish, why would the Hokage assign a clan less orphan dope like you to sensei before you even joined the academy stop lying. If anyone should have that is Sasuke-kun. She screeched. Again everyone winced from the loud screeching, Naruto and Kiba held their ears again, Akamaru followed suit wincing in pain. Shaking his head again Naruto now had a splitting headache and it wasn't even lunchtime yet, I have no reason to lie Haruno-san, nor did I. You are more than welcome to ask Hokage-sama of the existence of such an assignment to prove that, and might I request for the sake of mine and the rest of the classes, hearing that you stop yelling. We are in training to be shinobi, we are meant to be quiet, he said calmly, before fixing her with a glare, and call me that again, and you will find out just what a clan-less orphan dope can do to you faster than you can blink. The glare made her shiver, and the threat and the tone it was made in made everyone bar Iruka, Mizuki and Sasuke gulp scared slightly. Iruka raised an eyebrow at the threat, while both Mizuki and Sasuke had the same through, yeah right. Iruka cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. That's enough, now let's get back to events. Can anyone here perform any jutsu, any at all? Two hands raised up, Naruto and Sasuke both looked at each other. Sasuke had a look of surprise, not expecting someone not from a clan to know jutsu, but brushed it off thinking it was just something small nowhere near what he could do. Seeing both boys raise their hands, Iruka nodded, not shocked that Naruto knew a jutsu given that he had training, he was bound to have been taught something, and was interested to see what the blonde could do. Alright then, Sasuke, you can go first. If it's an offensive jutsu, aim it down range at the target, if not, then step out where everyone can see and have at it. Sasuke nodded and walked up to the firing line and shot through several hand signs while taking a deep breath before calling his attack, Kaiten. Kekkei no Jutsu fire release. Great Fireball is a fireball the size of a large dog shot down range before engulfing the target dummy and catching it on fire. Mizuki quickly put it out with a bucket of water. Iruka nodded, about what you would expect from Uchiha, a high fire affinity, he shows promise. Seeing the jutsu have the class broke out chanting Sasuke's praise, the Sasuke Uchiha fangirls. Sakura being the loudest of them all, woo-oh, that's it Sasuke, there no way Naruto Baka can beat that. She got multiple glares from the non-cheering side of the room, obviously, the Naruto fangirls all glaring bullets at her for calling Naruto that and insulting him earlier. Naruto rubbed his brow, his headache growing even worse. Iruka-sensei, are we allowed to perform multiple techniques if we know them, and they won't be shown in the other tournaments? He asked. Iruka thought for a moment before nodding, I don't see why not, I assume you want to show off some of your Kenjutsu and Fukinjutsu as well as your ninjutsu. Naruto nodded, also I would ask that you order that the Fukinjutsu part not be removed until the end of class, as I can guarantee that it will be of benefit to everyone in the class. Iruka nodded again, very well Naruto, if I think it will be of benefit, then it won't be removed until the end of the day, and if that is the case I will ask that you use it daily for our classes then. Naruto smiled, that's alright sensei, the seal I'm going to be demonstrating can be activated and deactivated remotely, he said as he reached into the storage seal on the inside of his trench coat and pulling out a bottle of chakra ink and a brush, dipping the brush in the ink for a split second, the blonde then disappeared, making everyone look around trying to find him. Suddenly a loud eep came from Sakura as she turned around finding Naruto grinning at her. She put her hand to the back of her neck and blinked when she felt something. She was about to yell when Naruto raised his hands in a ram sign and channeled chakra into the seal. What the hell was that, Baka? She said in a normal voice. She blinked and so did everyone else. No yelling, she spoke normally. It's a sign of the apocalypse, Haruno speaking normally. Naruto smiled, that's better isn't it, and to answer your question Haruno-san, I have applied a simple volume control seal to the back of your neck, just behind where the voice box would be located. Simply put, when activated you will be unable to yell and will have to talk normally, which I can assume that everyone here is happy about, given that their ears won't be ringing because of your banshee or howler monkey yelling. I don't yell like a howler monkey, and I'm no banshee, Sakura argued looking like she was trying to yell. Naruto smirked, well now you aren't, but don't worry, I'll deactivate it now, but yell again, and I'll activate it again, until the end of class. Sakura glared at Naruto angrily, she knew just how to respond to this, you had best remove it, otherwise I'm going to tell my Kase and you put a seal on me, she's on the council, and you'll be in a load of trouble, and they'll make you take it off. Naruto shook his head, the council doesn't scare me Haruno-san, and neither does your banshee of a Kase-san, they are the advisory council, they advise the Hokage, they don't pass judgment, so it's up him should I remove the seal, though I doubt he'll argue against it, given how the fact that classes will go a whole lot smoother without you disrupting lessons with your screeching. Isn't that right sensei? Iruka looked to be in thought for a moment before nodding lightly, deactivate the seal Naruto, but Sakura he is allowed to activate it, should you yell again, if you don't want that I suggest you refrain from disrupting the class, I will speak with the Hokage myself and recommend the seal only be activated under certain situations and deactivated when you leave the academy. Sakura looked shocked, she would have thought their sensei would have been the voice of reason and had the Baka remove it, not use it as her muzzle. Now she would be completely under Naruto's whim whenever he wanted her to shut up, he just had to activate that damn seal on her neck. Naruto smiles and walked up to the firing line, that was my Kenjutsu, now here's my Kenjutsu, he said as he gripped his Bakken, the resistance seal activated at its highest level as always as he pulled it free, muttering the attack as he went, Uzumaki Kenjutsu. crescent slash, and in a single horizontal slashing motion, a chakra blade was sent down the range, cutting 3 practice dummies in half. But the attack didn't stop, it shot on and meet the tree line, and finally stopped after cutting down 5 trees, letting them fall with a massive crash. Smirking, Naruto returned the Bakken to its holder. Well, he looked at all the shocked faces behind him. Well, half the class was in shock, the other half was cheering for Naruto. For some reason Naruto rubbed the back of his head, it felt good to hear people cheering for him. Iruka blinked, seeing such power that was definitely Chunin level if not higher. Naruto was definitely not lying about his skills, and looking closer at the Bakken Naruto had used, he could tell it was solid chakra metal, with various seals on it. That couldn't have been cheap, which prompted the question, where had he gotten it from? Sasuke was seething. How the hell did this dope get this much power? It should be his, he was an elite, that power should rightfully be his as an Uchiha. Then he spotted the Bakken, that weapon that must be where the power is. I will have it, I will have that power. Naruto smirked, turning back to the target area. Now I believe since Uchiha-san did a fire jutsu for his demonstration, I will also. Good thing I asked Jiji for permission to use it once for just such an occasion. Naruto drew back his hands as he focused his chakra into them, remembering his training. He had created an extra 300 clones after his first demonstration of the jutsu, and he and them had spent the rest of that day refining it and getting it under control by firing the attacks into the air. He had mastered it to an extent that something really cool happened when he was preparing to attack. In a flash, both Naruto's hands caught ablaze but didn't burn. Iruka was about to rush to him, thinking the jutsu had gone wrong, but then Naruto brought his hands together in front of him in a clap, calling out the attack. It was barely audible. Uzumaki Kaiten. Kasai Hakushu no Jutsu. Both hands met and an explosion of flames streamed out of them. The flames were so intense the rest of the class had to shield their eyes. Compared to the demonstration a few days earlier, Naruto had refined the attack a lot. The stream of flame was much more controlled and narrowed, as well as being hotter, meaning it scorched the grass beneath it after a single second. Naruto kept the attack going for several seconds before cancelling it to view the results. The line of scorched grass and earth stretched down the firing lane, and at the bottom was the remains of the target dummy, now charcoal. This time, there wasn't an applause, there wasn't even a what the hell. It was just stunned awe and shock at what they had just witnessed. That continued on for a few seconds before Iruka snapped himself out of it. Then Naruto, what jutsu was that you just used? I've never seen it before, he asked, now slightly scared where the boy had learned such an attack. Naruto grinned. It's called Kasai Hakushu, and according to Hokage-sama it is an air rank ninjutsu. I actually had to ask his permission yesterday to use it here. He forbid me from using it outside of training until I was genin, or it was a life or death situation. It's the only fire jutsu I currently possess. Hearing Naruto's explanation, Iruka officially had his mind blown. An academy student. A non-clan member academy student, pulling off an air rank jutsu on his first day at the academy. Just what the hell kind of training has this boy sensei's been teaching him? Sasuke had his fists clenched in anger now. How the hell? That jutsu was 10 times as strong as his jutsu, and it had taken him weeks of practicing to get it where it was, and then this clan-less dope comes along and makes his work look like nothing. What the hell is going on here? The jutsu, that's got to be it. It makes sense, it's just a stronger jutsu than the one I'm learning. I'll just have to take it from him along with that weapon of his. With both them I'll become strong easily. I'm an Uchiha, all jutsu belongs to me and me alone. He was about to approach him then and there and demand them both, but suddenly half the class Naruto fan club, from this moment on will be known as NFC, rushed Naruto cheering at his jutsu and how strong he was. They swarmed the young blonde while trampling right over Sasuke like he wasn't even there. But when they crowded him, the blonde disappeared in a swirl of red leaves, making them all fall flat on their faces. Both Iruka, Mizuki, Sasuke and everyone else saw this and looked around wondering what happened. Iruka blinked. Shunshin, that's a Chunin level jutsu that requires a high level of chakra control. How? Scratch that, I'm not even surprised anymore. Everyone was still looking around for Naruto. When they all heard someone clear their throats, they all looked to where it came from, and Naruto was sticking to the wall of the academy by his feet, looking down on all of them, looking for me. Every member of the NFC had heart-shaped eyes, while Sasuke and Mizuki looked on, glaring at the boy who just seemed to get stronger and stronger. Iruka looked up at the boy. Naruto, come down, we're about to start the throwing tournament, he called up. Naruto nodded and pushed himself off the 2-story wall and did a mid-air somersault and channeled chakra into his legs to stick the landing with ease. Walking past, he and Kiba bro-fisted with a smirk. Nice one, dude, Kiba smirked at him, giving him a friendly slap on the back. Naruto grinned, thanks, but just wait, you've seen nothing yet. Everyone retook their positions as Mizuki came out of one of the storage sheds carrying 6 crates of kunai and shuriken. Setting each down, the students were told to form into a line, and their marks would be graded out of 10 shots. Each of the clan students went first. Shino threw his 10 and hit 6 of each, Chimjai threw his 10 and hit 5 of each, Kiba threw his 10 and hit 5 of each, Shikamaru threw his 10 and hit 6 of each, Ino threw her 10 hit 4 of each, Hinata threw her 10 hit 7 of each. Then Sasuke threw his 10 hitting 9 of the targets with a smirk. All the others from civilian families threw theirs but none for more than 3, except for Sakura who pulled out 4 matching Ino's 4, and the Enigma Sai hit 5 in each matching Kiba. Finally it was Naruto's turn to throw. Walking up he lifted a single kunai and shuriken out of the crates like the others had, not wanting to use his own. As he did so he closed the boxes making Iruka raise an eyebrow. "Naruto, don't you want to take the others out before you close them up?" A few others snickered thinking Naruto was an idiot. "Guess who?" Naruto simply smiled. "No need to worry sensei, one of each is all I need." Iruka was about to say something, but before he could Naruto hurtles both projectiles down the range. As they flew Iruka looked to Naruto, and his eyes widened when he formed a hand sign. No way, he knows the jutsu. Then 2 poofs of smoke, both kunai and shuriken multiplied into 10 and hit each of their targets dead on, the kunai embedding into the target's head, the shuriken into where their hearts would be. A perfect 10 for 10, the targets were only half the distance away that he was used to and standing still, it was child's play for him. This, of course, got another round of cheers from the NFC and glares from Sasuke and Mizuki, who continued to glare as he walked down range to retrieve the kunai and shuriken thrown. Iruka cleared his throat again. "Alright, it's time for the final part of today's events, the Taijutsu tournament. You've all already been paired up, so follow me to the sparring ring and we'll begin." Everyone followed Iruka as he leads them to a raised ovular platform 10 centimeters off the ground, with a wide oval ring painted on it a meter in from the edge, the platform itself being 6 meters in diameter. The rounds have been arranged so you're fighting people with the same gender. It will be this way until you reach the second year, where you will be expected to be able to have the skills to fight as equals. For fairness sake, now the first match will be. The tournament began. Each of the clan heirs faced civilian children in the first round. No surprise, they all won. Sakura even pulled out a win, and Naruto won in 2 hits, the final being a jab to the back of his opponent's neck when he overreached himself. Round 2 began with Shino vs Shikamaru. After 2 minutes Shikamaru surrendered, saying it was too troublesome to continue. Round 2 was Kiba vs Chimjai. Kiba won by holding out longer than Chimjai and using his speed to dodge the big bone boy's attacks. Naruto had to fight another civilian student this time. He simply hit him with a single punch, knocking his opponent out of the ring. Needless to say, the NFC was loving their idol winning his matches effortlessly. Sasuke had done the same, only his attack was a roundhouse kick to his opponent's head, knocking them out of the ring and knocking the boy unconscious. On the girls' side it had been Ino versus a civilian. Again she barely pulled out a win, while it had been Sakura versus Hinata, and Hinata had decimated her with a flurry of punches, leaving the pink-haired girl on the ground twitching from the assault. She had been taken to the academy nurse for treatment, along with the boy who had lost to Sasuke to check for a concussion. The third round with the boys had been Shino vs Sasuke. Shino put up his best defense, but after 3 blows he withdrew claiming he was outmatched, and Taijutsu wasn't his strong point like the rest of his clan. Then it was Naruto and Kiba, the two grinned facing each other in the ring. Kiba had let Akamaru sit this one out wanting to spar with Naruto alone. The two went at each other, ferociously, Naruto keeping up with Kiba fist for fist, kick for kick. It was a mirror image. Actually, every time Kiba threw a punch, Naruto would swat it away. Every time he threw any attack, Naruto used the same appendage and moved to deflect it. After 10 minutes of continuous sparring, Kiba was beginning to lag, and Naruto took that as a sign to end the fight. In a burst of speed he threw a punch at Kiba, aiming right for his solar plexus. Kiba saw it coming and put up his arms to defend in an X shape. The punch and Kiba's arms met, and the dog boy was pushed back a meter, flinching at the impact. Naruto was about to press the assault when Kiba raised his hand calling his surrender, in a panting voice. Naruto stopped his fist mere centimeters away from Kiba's face. The dog boy gulped. Naruto removed his fish and held out his hand. Good fight, Kiba. Kiba sighed and took Naruto's hand. Yay, but you still kicked my arse, even when you're wearing those seals of yours, and kind of makes me feel like a chump. Naruto grinned. Sorry, it's not my fault that I kick so much ass. Kiba chuckled. Yeah right, just make sure you put on a good show when you fight the emo douche. Naruto chuckled evilly. Oh, he won't know what hit him. Kiba shivered slightly at the tone but nodded, grateful he wasn't the one in Naruto's firing line. He walked off stage getting a hand on the shoulder from Iruka, who knelt down to Kiba's level. What was that you two were talking about? What seals does Naruto have? He asked, concerned. Naruto knew about the kekkei, or worse, had told Kiba. Kiba rubbed the back of his head. A restriction instead of weight seals. Naruto is always training with them and making the rest of us look like chumps while doing it. Iruka sighed in relief that it wasn't the fox they were talking about, but then Iruka grew curious. Kiba, just how much weight is Naruto carrying? Kiba was about to answer, but Naruto spoke first. 50 pounds on each limb, 100 on my chest, and a level 2 restriction seal, sensei. Iruka looked at Naruto when he heard him, that was 300 pounds 136 kg, and a restriction seal that would only make it harder for him to move. With that kind of pressure he shouldn't even be standing up right now, that would be like 2 or 3 full-size adults on him while he's trying to push his way through a swamp up to his neck. And yet he was moving with ease, no one had yet to land a single blow. Sighing, Iruka merely accepted it, making a mental note to ask Lord Hokage what kind of training this boy sensei put him through. It was time for the final matches of the tournament. Ino had fought her way to facing Hinata in the last match, and on the boys' side, it was Naruto versus Sasuke. Sasuke walked up onto the platform and smirked, "This is a joke, there's no way a clan less dope like you could ever hope to defeat an Uchiha elite like me," he said in an arrogant tone. Naruto smirked, shaking his head, "Oh, is that right, Uchiha-san? I'll just have to prove you wrong, then won't I?" Sasuke glared at Naruto, "Impossible dope, you can't win, you will lose like all the rest." Sasuke's fan club was swooning over his words and cheering him on to beat the blonde baka for even thinking he was at the same level. The NFC, of course, was doing the same in reverse, calling for Naruto to beat the duck butt emo into the ground. Both boys glared at each other as Iruka came onto the stand and looked between them both. Sasuke fell into his clan's fighting style stance, the interceptor fist, a mix between a boxer's stance and a martial arts stance. Naruto recognized it, having read up on the different fighting styles in the library. The interceptor fist was a solid style built up over the decades of watching others' styles and coming up with counters, along with adding parts of them to the style. The style was a formidable one, but without the Uchiha Sharingan, it was only half as good. Naruto dropped into a solid stance of the Academy Taijutsu style, the basic fist, showing he was ready to fight. Naruto had studied the academy style. It was a basic style with basic moves. Its stances were like the name suggested, basic, filled with plenty of holes, but it was only used for students to give them a solid foundation to build upon when learning another style. It basically shows them how to throw a punch without breaking their fingers, how to block and deflect successfully, how to stand and throw a powerful kick, how to dodge and duck from high blows, and how to interoperate movements to tell what your opponent is going to do next. Naruto had a good grasp of it, so he wasn't worried in this fight, even with his seals on. Seeing the boys fall into their stances, Iruka raised his hand and dropped it. Begin. Both boys glared at each other as Sasuke lunged for Naruto with a high kick. Naruto brought his arm up and blocked the kick before pushing the boy back. Sasuke landed and used the momentum to swing round and do a heel sweep of Naruto's legs. Naruto saw it coming as well and moved his foot, adoringly blocking the sweep with the bottom of his foot. And hooked the boy's leg the moment after and threw him over himself, landing face first. Getting gasps of shock from Sasuke's fan club and cheers from his own, Naruto smirked as he retook his stance as Sasuke shot at him again, pissed that he had let that happen, throwing a left hook at Naruto, who intercepts it, grabbing Sasuke's arm and used his own weight to slam the boy onto his back as Naruto moved off with a grin like he was having the time of his life. More cheers from Naruto's fan club, even Kiba was cheering, "Yay, get in there Naruto, kick that pompous prick's ass." Naruto grinned, hearing that as an idea came into his head and he liked where it was going. Sasuke's world was starting to straighten up again after meeting the mat for the second time in the fight. This shouldn't be happening to him. How can some clanless dope do this to him, an Uchiha elite? He would beat him and make him pay for such an act. Using his legs, he pumped hard and threw himself onto his feet and turned to see Naruto in a different stance. It was like he was dancing on the spot. His entire body was moving, his legs stretching out behind him and his arms swaying wide as the boy kept moving. Then a thought crossed the Uchiha's mind. He was taunting him. That just pissed him off more as he rushed the blonde. But that was just what Naruto wanted. Pushing his weight to one side, Naruto swung his right foot around at Sasuke's head and blindsided the boy with a spinning kick that came out of nowhere, as it had just looked like Naruto had still been swaying. The kick connected with the side of Sasuke's jaw, knocking him out on his feet, but the kick didn't stop. Naruto's momentum kept him going as his foot swung round in a 360, as Naruto kept his momentum going for the same foot to swing round and meet Sasuke's face with twice the momentum of the first. The impact knocked the Uchiha off his feet and spun him, landing him flat on the ground out cold. As the momentum continued, throwing Naruto into a cartwheel before he stopped and stood up, looking down at the beaten Uchiha elite. It was complete shock from the rest of the class. They had never seen a kick like that before, neither had either of the Chunin instructors. They had just assumed Naruto was messing around, but then he goes and pulls off a set of kicks like that with such force and speed behind them, they would have been impossible to predict. Iruka quickly snapped out of it and called Naruto for the victory, which was followed by cheering from the NFC, while booing from Sasuke's side. Naruto just stepped out of the ring and onto the ground. Mizuki went to check on Sasuke, while Iruka went to Naruto. "Naruto, that kick and stance wasn't part of any style I've seen before in the village or anywhere in the land of fire. What was that? It looked like you were dancing for a moment, a very weird dance at that." Iruka asked, confused. Naruto smiled. It's a style I started learning after I got the academy style down with my sensei. It's based on rhythm and very powerful kicks, as you just saw. The stance I was in was called Ginga. It's the basis stance of the style. Most don't take it seriously, as they find it confusing, since it looks much more like a rhythmic dance step than an orthodox static fighting stance. But that's how it works, using momentum for power. The only problem with the style is that it requires room to build up that power, so if Sasuke had gotten in close and fast I would have been in trouble. But that's why I have the academy style down as well, for when my opponent does get close, I change styles and really throw them off. Iruka was caught off by this, he had never heard of such a style or stance. Naruto was definitely right, people wouldn't take the style seriously until they met one of its kicks like Sasuke just had. I take it each kick has a name, then what was the one you hit Sasuke with then? Naruto nodded, that was one of the more advanced kicks, it was called Myalua de Compasso. It's a rotation kick that uses the momentum built up from the Ginga for strength. If learned to an extent it can be built on, like my one was for an additional set of kicks. I added one for extra measure. Iruka nodded, understanding Naruto's reasoning. Very impressive, Naruto, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that style as you learn it. Naruto bowed. Arigato for the praise, sensei, he said before turning back and walking back to the rest of the class minus Sasuke, whom Mizuki had carried off to the hospital to have examined. Iruka then had gone to referee the match between Ino and Hinata, which was over as soon as it started, when Ino bad-mouthed Naruto, saying it must have been a fluke that Naruto beat Sasuke. Hinata saw red and knocked her out with a single strike, and Iruka called the fastest match in the academy's history, before dismissing them for lunch, saying the class positions would be given after. Naruto immediately took off with Kiba heading for Ichiraku's, knowing that Anko would be heading there also, and couldn't wait to tell her about everything that's happened so far. Boy, would she be laughing. Chapter 6. Naruto pushed past the flaps on the way into the ramen stand with Kiba, both of who were laughing their asses off, remembering how Naruto had kicked Sasuke's ass like the little pussy he was. That should shut him up for a while. Damn, and you say you still haven't mastered that style yet, remind me never to piss you off when you do, Kiba said, laughing. Naruto patted his friend's back. Nah, no need to worry, I only reserve that kind of beatdown to the like of team back there. Both boys laughed before sitting down. Anko wasn't here yet, but Naruto knew she knew this is where he would before lunch, so it was only a matter of time till she'd arrive. No sooner had he thought that had he felt something, or rather someone hugging him from behind. Evening, Foxy-kun, miss me much? Spoke Anko's voice. Naruto grinned, spinning himself around on his stool as Anko took her seat on his lap, making him grin. You have no idea, my Hebeheim, he said before kissing her lips in a light pass, making her smile and lean into him as he held her. So you have much fun today. I heard someone made quite the spectacle in the tournaments for the new batch. That wouldn't be you, would it, Foxy-kun? Anko said teasingly with a very big smile on her face. Naruto grinned. Maybe, he said in a sing-song voice, teasing her back. I wouldn't really call it making a spectacle per se. I was just showing off a bit. I didn't even remove my weights for the Taijutsu part, and I held back a buttload of chakra in the Jutsu example. I wasn't even using a tenth of what I should have. Actually, Naruto-sama, you weren't even using a 20th of the amount. Your chakra control had improved greatly over the few weeks training. That's good to know, thanks, Akane-chan. Well, that's because you're a powerhouse. I doubt even that Uchiha could keep up with you, Anko said with a grin which fell when she saw both Kiba and Naruto chuckling like mad. What's up, did I say something funny? Kiba laughed. Yep, Naruto made the Uchiha team look like a punk. He make his fire jutsu look like a firecracker compared to his own, beat the team at the target range with one of each projectile, and then put the pompous ass on the mat twice before knocking him flat out for the TKO. Kiba said before he fell on the ground laughing his ass off. Hearing that, Anko burst out in laughter. Oh man, I wish I could have seen it. Okay, tell me everything and leave out none of the juicy bits, I want to hear it all. Naruto grinned and was about to speak when in a swirl of leaves an Anbu appeared wearing a white boar mask with a red streak down one side. Naruto recognized him as one of the four that usually guards the Hokage. Naruto grinned and looked to him. Evening, Boar-san, I see you got a new uniform. What? Was pink not your color? I'm sure I could arrange for a bright yellow or maybe green next time, he said with a big smile, making both the others in the room roar with laughter again. Naruto and Anko had told Kiba about how he had turned half the Anbu pink with one of his pranks, and Kiba still laughed picturing the sight. The Anbu paled behind his mask. Please don't use Uzumaki-san, and I'm here on urgent business. You have been summoned to appear before the council immediately. You are charged with 2 counts of assault and 1 count of theft. This got all 3 of their attentions. Not yet being shinobi meant that such charges held a lot more weight to them than if they were shinobi, and who was Naruto meant to have assaulted and stolen from. Slowly Naruto sighed before gesturing Anko off his lap. She gripped his hand and he smiled at her softly. It's alright, Hebeheim, I'll see to this and see you at home. Kiba, mind telling sensei I could be later to class than expected if this drags on? Kiba nodded at Naruto's request, "Sure dude. Just fill me in on just what the hell's going on later." Naruto nodded and looked to Anko before giving her another quick kiss, brushing her hair back out of her face. "See you soon my Haim," he smiled before stepping back and disappearing into a whirlwind of red leaves, making the Anbu blink behind his mask and quickly following him. Just then Teuchi came out from the back. "Oh hey you two, I thought Naruto would have been with you," he said, confused he wasn't seeing his favorite blonde customer. Kiba shook his head and Anko sighed. "You just missed him Teuchi Oji-san, he was just summoned by the council on trumped-up charges." Teuchi looked at her, gripping his wooden spoon more tightly as he gritted his teeth, growling slightly, "Rat bastards." He muttered under his breath before looking back to the ramen pots and taking their orders. When Teuchi went into the back to start to make their orders, Kiba looked to Anko and then a very evil idea crossed his mind. "Hey Anko, I think there's something else you should know about class TOTAY." Anko looked to Kiba with a raised eyebrow. "Like what?" she asked curiously as to what it could mean. Scene break. Naruto appeared in the middle of the council chambers in his swirl of red leaves, causing many of the present councilors and clan heads to look at him. But a second later he felt a shiver go down his spine for an unknown reason, and then he gulped. "I just got a very bad feeling a force is about to be unleashed on some poor academy students. Oh well, it's probably nothing." The room was a large and circular with a lowered middle flooring with a set of steps leading down. There were two curved tables on either side, just before the steps behind which the councilors and clan heads sat on opposite sides. The tables were divided at both ends by a large gap, one side led to the large double doors into the council room, the other was the Hokage's chair. On the right side of the room was the easily recognizable civilian council, made up of the wealthier of the civilians, mostly those who run the market district, the banks, restaurants and other well-off the business of the sort. On the left were the clan heads, all of whom Naruto recognized. First from the Hokage's chair was top of the head of Shikaku Nara, Nara clan head, and father to Shikamaru Nara. He had two scars on the right side of his face, which were probably his most noticeable feature. Like his son, he had dark hair tied up into a spiky ponytail, dark eyes as well as a goatee. His ears were also pierced. Like many of the clan heads he was an active shinobi and as so wore clothing of that of a shinobi. Shikaku wore a meshed shirt underneath his flak jacket, a deerskin coat over that and hand guards. And typical of that of the Nara clan was a genius but an extremely lazy one, so he tried to get as much sleep when he could. Next was Inoichi Yamanaka, head of the Yamanaka clan and one of the previous members of the Ino Shikacho formation. He was also a valued member of the torture and intelligence division and the Hokage's right-hand man as Shikaku was his left. Inoichi was also a shinobi. He had long ash blonde hair reaching into his back, which he wore spiky on top and ending in a long ponytail, blue-green eyes and strong facial features, which included a well-defined jawline, wearing the standard flak jacket over a black outfit, complete with hand guards, forehead protector and a sleeveless red haori. Then was Shimza Akimichi, a tall, plump man with long, spiky red hair and purple markings on his cheeks, wearing a samurai-style outfit, which entails a black suit completed with armor that has the kanji for food on it. But the addition of a rope belt, hand guards, and instead of a forehead protector he wears a hachimaki tied around his head, as most chefs do, as one of the things Akimichi were known for was their restaurants. He also wore a pair of silver hooped earrings. Next came Tsume Yuzuka, and currently the only female clan head among the clans, but she was not someone you would want to mess with. She has an animalistic look similar to that of her son Kiba. She has long, spiky, untamed brown hair, vertical slit-like pupils, elongated canine teeth and nails. She also has the clan fang markings on her cheeks, as well as markings over her eyes, and a dark shade of purple lipstick. She wears the standard outfit of a Konoha shinobi consisting of flak jacket and a black suit underneath, with the sleeves rolled up and bandages around her legs. Rumor had it that when it comes to men, the last one she literally made him piss himself after she found him sleeping around. The man was so afraid he fled the land of fire to keep the bits that made him a man. Naruto had the balls to ask if that was true when they met, and she laughed, saying every word of it. Naruto made a point right there and then to always stay on her good side. After Tsume was the more stoic face of Hiashi Haika clan head. He has long, black hair and featureless wide eyes like all members of his clan, who wield the Byakugan. He normally wears very traditional, loose-fitting robes with a long-sleeved brown haori, as one of the wealthier of the clans, and the largest Hiashi doesn't take on many missions, though Naruto has never doubted the man's strength in a fight. Naruto never really had a problem with the Haika clan. They were cold to everyone, mostly except to those who earned their respect. Naruto had also heard rumors of the clan branding their branch members with a seal of some sort. He has heard the effects are rather unpleasant, but he has never seen it. And then finally came Shibi Aburam, head of the Aburam clan, like all members of his clan, has his eyes obscured by dark glasses, which feature a single tassel hanging down from one side. He has very spiky short black hair and a mustache, and wears a high-collared outfit. Truthfully, the Aburam kind of creep Naruto out with their bodies filled with bugs, just the thought made Naruto squirm. Appearing in the room as he did got a few raised eyebrows at the fact that someone that just started the academy that day knowing its Chunin level technique. Naruto quickly glanced around the room as soon as he arrived, and one thing that he noticed was that the Hokage wasn't present. Naruto's eyebrow twitched ever so slightly, noticing that. Great, so I came here when I didn't need to. Naruto let it slide and then grinned. Maybe I'll have some fun, should be interesting. Evening all, Naruto said, grinning. So someone mind telling me why I was called away from my girlfriend when there was no need for me to even come? This got some raised eyebrows on the clan's head side, and Tsume just chuckled, imagining Anko wouldn't take kindly to the interruption, while over on the civilian side they were livid. Brat, you would do well to show us the respect we deserve. We are the council and we should be treated with the utmost respect. Especially from low-class shit such as you. The clan heads all shook theirs hearing their civilian counterparts rant and rave at the young blonde who just crossed his arms. Naruto smirked a bit. Oh please, I respect those who have actually done something to earn it or hold a position of power that they don't abuse. Such as the clan heads and the Hokage, they have my respect and who I answer to. I do not and will not answer to a fat-ass bunch of decrepit old senile civilians who just because they believe they hold a grain of power in their hands, believe they have the right to abuse it as such. You civilian counselors make me sick. How dare you, Anbu, kill this demon brat now, he cannot speak to us like this. Screeched a woman with long pink hair as she pointed at Naruto, eyes filled with rage. Both Naruto and Tsume flinched from the vocal assault. Naruto responded first. You ignorant banshee bitch, last I checked the shinobi and Anbu only follow the Hokage's orders. You cannot command the Anbu like your playthings, they have no obligation to listen to your orders, same as me. The only reason I came here was because I was told I was being brought up on charges of 2 counts of assault and 1 of theft, but seeing that the Hokage is the only one who can formally bring those charges against me, I see that I was misinformed, so care to explain why I was called here. Naruto said, not missing a beat. This got some shocked reactions from the clan heads and a few raised eyebrows. This was news to them as well. Tsume started growling, what bullshit is this? We were informed that the Hokage had important matters to discuss. What's this about charges? Naruto looked to her, not a damn fucking clue, though I suspect these diskless shits over here know. Naruto then turned to them and glared at them and they returned in kind. How dare you, brat? We are the council, and you have committed crimes against this village. You attacked 2 citizens and stole from one of them. A fat shopkeeper barked. Naruto scoffed, oh really, they tell me, you pissant, if I'm being brought up on charges I'm assuming that you have the warrants for my arrest and detainment, signed and sealed by the Hokage, if not that means your charges are false, having not been brought to the Hokage's attention. Naruto glared but then smirked, but I think I humor you, just who was I meant to have attacked, and just who have I stolen from, and what have I stolen? You know full well, demon. Screeched the pink-haired woman. Both Tsume and Naruto flinched again from the loud noise. This time, it was Tsume to speak first. Would you shut up, yell like that again, and I'll come over there and cut your fucking banshee voice box out, you bitch. She yelled as she exuded killing intent, making the pink-haired woman cower. Naruto was rubbing his ears, making the ringing stop, before shaking his head. Ah, I see what going on here now. Fair enough, he said before looking to the corner in the shadow. Nico-chan, would you mind go informing Hokage-sama that there are some matters that are in need of his attention in the council chambers? The cat mask Anbu stepped out of the shadows and nodded, very well, Uzumaki-san. She responded as she was about to shunch into the Hokage's office when one of the other civilian counselors stood up and started yelling. Hey, how come you listen to what he says and not us, the council? There were a few hidden laughters coming from the shadows in the room and even a slight giggle from Nico before she responded, simple councilman, we respect Uzumaki-san, unlike you lot. She said before disappearing in a swirl of green and purple leaves, leaving the civilian council members gritting their teeth in anger. Naruto smiled before walking to the center of the room and sitting down. Now, time to wait, so Tsume-san, how things been at the Inyazuka compound? I haven't been by as few days. Tsume grinned, bowed as well as can be expected. Gaki, training the new pups for the next generation is always slow. What about you? How was your first day at the academy going? Naruto smirked before putting his hands behind his head and lying back on the ground. It was going great up until 15 minutes ago. We wrapped up the demonstration and tournament part of the day. Target practice was good, but they could do with increasing the target distance. I'm used to throwing twice the distance at moving targets. If I remember the scores correctly, Shino got 14 out of 20. Jai got 10 out of 20, Kiba got the same, Shikamaru surprisingly hit 12 out of 20, even though he seems to have about as much will to participate as you do staying conscious, Shikaku-san. Naruto chuckled along with a few of the clan heads as the half-conscious Nara just waved him off, head still down on the desk. Ino got 8 out of 20, same with her pink-haired counterpart Haruno, which isn't good. Inoichi-san, you need to get that fangirl out of her. Inoichi frowned hearing that. I've tried Naruto, but the girl is like her mother, stubborn, and she's a teenager, which is even worse. Naruto nodded in understanding. Well, she was just above average, the civilians hit about 6 or less. Naruto then looked to Hiashi. You should be proud, Hiashi-sama. Hinata scored highest from all the kunoichi and even matched Shino with 14 out of 20 hits. Hiashi blinked once and nodded his head. Thank you, Uzumaki-san, I will be sure to congratulate her, he said with a nearly unnoticeable smile, tweaking his lips. Naruto sawed and smiled back before continuing. Of course, the oh-so-great civilian part is probably wondering what the Uchiha got as well. No shock it was high, given how many hours he likely trains. He scored 18 out of the 20 possible hits, making him the highest in the class. Naruto grinned cheerily as pleased smirks came to the counselors' faces before Naruto spoke again, or at least he was, until I beat him with a perfect 20 hits. That got a few smirks from the clan heads. Tsume started laughing and pounding the table, the civilian side not so much. Rubbish, there's no way a clan less orphan like you could best Uchiha-sama at anything. White lying brat. Like we would ever believe your pack of lies. Naruto shook his head as the clan head sighed listening to them. Each of the clan heads had had dealing with Naruto in the past and knew the fact that he wasn't the kekkei sealed inside. Though they weren't privy to the more delicate information that he had spoken to the kekkei, or that the kekkei was female and she was named Akane, and that she was actually controlled by someone with a Sharingan eye. But the majority of the clan heads like Naruto, Hiashi was on the fence about him, but he wasn't unfriendly with the boy and could see he was decent and he would side with him on most matters, but matters being as they are, with the Hikage Council breathing down his neck and with the state his clan is in, he can't anger them. Just as things were starting to get heated, the doors opened and the third Hokage walked in with Nico at his side. What is going on here? He asked in a rather angry voice. It was at that point Naruto kicked himself up onto his feet and turned to his surrogate grandfather with a grin. Oh, you know, the usual Hokage-sama, just the civilian side of the council overstepping their bounds, trying to usurp your power and charge me with false crimes, the usual BS. Hearing his surrogate grandson's explanation and seeing the looks of rage on the civilian councilors' faces directed at the boy, Hiruzen just sighed. Can I get a bigger headache? Let's get this over with then, but we will do this right. What crimes are you being accused of, Naruto? With a big grin on his face, Naruto chuckled. Why, 2 counts of assault and 1 of theft apparently, and I think I know the 2 who are charging me, so this shouldn't take too long, Hokage-sama. Hearing the charges, Hiruzen leveled his angry gaze on the civilian side of the council. Those are some serious charges, and there had better be some serious evidence to back them up, seeing as they were never brought before me beforehand, they will be now. The Hokage walked to his seat before sitting down. So who is it that you are meant to have assaulted and stolen from, Naruto? Naruto grinned sitting down with his legs crossed, with a grin. Well, if my guess is right, I'm thinking it would be Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. As for the theft, I have no clue. At that moment the pink-haired woman again rose. AHA, so you admit to attacking my daughter and the great Uchiha-sama, it's a confession. Naruto and Tsume covered their ears, as did a few others. The banshee was screaming louder now. The Hokage glared at the pink-haired woman. Counselor Haruno, you would do well to remember to speak in tone, and in a reasonable tone at that. Any further outbursts and you will be removed from council chambers for the remainder of the meeting. Gulping, the pink-haired woman quickly sat down, but still glaring daggers at Naruto, who had just finished rubbing the new ringing out of his ears before speaking. No, that was not a confession, it was just a guess considering who is present in the room at the moment. Naruto then looked over at another shadow. You 2 can come out now. As Naruto spoke, 2 figures came out of the shadows, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto held up his hand as if to say, and there you have it, before grinning. Now shall we continue to these apparent attacks? Once again it was the Haruno banshee to the screeching. You branded my daughter with a seal and attacked Uchiha-sama while his back was turned. My daughter witnessed it. And the mini banshee couldn't help herself. That's right, that baka you hurt Sasuke-kun. Now the clan heads, Anbu, Hokage were wincing from the vocal bombardment, thinking these girls had to have weaponized their vocal cords, that or it was a bloodline limit of some kind that had no point. Everyone now nursing serious migraine groaned as they rubbed their ears, except for Naruto. Tsume looked to him and raised an eyebrow. How come you aren't affected now? Naruto grinned as he reached up to his ear and pulled out a red earbud with some seals on it, sound filtering earbuds. I put them in just before, they come in handy for such occasions, won't let any sound in over a certain frequency. I designed them walking to lunch before coming here, figured they might come in handy. Boy, was I right. The clan heads, Anbu and Hokage, all had 2 thoughts, smart bastard and can he make me a pair? Naruto grinned. Now, let's sort out these charges. The easiest way would be to call Iruka-sensei, as he witnessed both of these supposed attacks. The Hokage nodded and gestured to Nico, who nodded before disappearing, and another Shunshin returning seconds later with a serious-looking Iruka. Hello, Haruka-sensei, my apologies for dragging you away from class, but some matters have come up that we need you to clear up, Naruto said as he stood up. Haruka nodded and looked to the Hokage. I will answer any questions given to me, Hokage-sama. The Hokage nodded in thanks. Thank you Haruka. Now Naruto here has been charged with multiple crimes. The two in question at the moment are 2 counts of assault, and Naruto believes you bore witness. Naruto nodded. Haruka-sensei, did you see me apply a seal to the back of Sakura Haruno-san's neck during a demonstration of my skills earlier today? Haruka nodded. Yes I did, along with the rest of the class. I was going to be seeing about meeting with Hokage-sama later today after class about arranging for it to be permanent until she leaves, so as to benefit the entire class. This got a few blinks from the clan heads as to just what this seal was, if it benefited the class so much for the class sensei to ask for it to be made permanent for the girls' time at the academy. The Hokage stroked his beard for a second before chuckling. Naruto, is the seal in question the one I am thinking of? Naruto grinned. Yes it is Jiji, if you would like I would give a demonstration to the council as to how the seal was applied, though to make them feel safe, I would ask that the ink is mixed with your chakra, so as only you can activate it. The Hokage chuckled. Very well Naruto. He said as he gestured for the boy to come to him as he took out a kunai and pricked his finger as Naruto held out a bottle of plain ink, catching the chakra-filled blood before capping the bottle and shaking it to mix the two together as the Hokage healed the small cut with a small medical ninjutsu. Naruto then took out a brush and smiled. Do I have your permission to apply the seal, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen smiled. Go right ahead Naruto. Naruto smiled back as he dipped his brush into the ink and disappeared into a blur. Before anyone could react, the elder Haruno screamed as she felt something touch the back of her neck in shock. She turned quickly to see Naruto grinning at her before disappearing and reappearing in the center of the room again. Seal had been applied Hokage-sama if you would. The Hokage nodded and formed a hand sign just as the Haruno woman got up. How dare you touch me filth, I will see you hang for this travesty, demon, you hear me you. The Hokage channeled chakra and just like that the seal activated, will pay for this with your life, demon. The entirety of the room was silent for precisely 3 seconds after that, in shock at what had just occurred, but then the entire clan head side of the room broke out in celebration. Praise Kami, it's a miracle. The banshee has been silenced. No more screaming, the screaming has stopped, hallelujah. It's a gift from Kami-sama, praised the boy. Naruto had to sweat drop at seeing grown men weep with happiness, and seeing a few of them get up and dance was hysterical. Naruto even saw Hiruzen muttering a silent prayer of thanks which made him chuckle. Before the old man cleared his throat. Alright, that's enough. He said as the clan head settled down, the seal applied to both women hold no threat to them, and I hereby order that they remain and only activated at certain times, such as when in meetings and at the academy. It will save many people's eardrums. Not screeching this time due to her seal, the older Haruno spoke. What, you can't do that, this has got to be a breach of mine and my daughter's rights. Hiruzen fixed her with a glare. May I remind you Lady Haruno that this is a dictatorship, not a democracy. I can do what I please, I wear the hat not you, and as for your rights, what of the rest of our rights not to be deafened by your yelling? I believe speaking in the norm may be beneficial to all at those times when the seal is active. And to add to that, as the seal is non-attacking, there is no assault here, so that is 1 count of assault off the table. Naruto cleared his throat at that. You may as well strike the second count for the Uchiha as well, if it's the one that caused him to be treated at the hospital. It wasn't an attack, and it certainly wasn't when his back was turned. It was a sanctioned sparring match in the tournament for the first day, and how the younger Haruno-san can even testify to this count is confusing, as she was in the medical office after being knocked out in her previous fight, so she wasn't even there to witness the rest. I'm sure you can verify this for me, Haruka-sensei. Haruka nodded to Naruto request. Yes I can. Sakura Haruno lost in the second round of the tournament when she faced Hinata Haika and was beaten in 10 seconds with an instantaneous blow, resulted in her being knocked out and taken for medical attention, and did not return for the remainder of the tournament. Naruto's and Sasuke's match was in the finals of the tournament, which lasted for 3 minutes, in which Sasuke met the mat twice in a row before Naruto switched fighting styles to confuse Sasuke and then delivered a set of kicks that knocked Sasuke out for the win. It was all witnessed and sanctioned, no assault took place. At this point both Sasuke, Sakura and the civilian side were fixed with glares from the clan head side. Not only had they tried to pin phony charges on Naruto, they had done so around the Hokage's back and tried to do so with a false witness, which were bordering on crimes themselves. Had they actually succeeded, that was, unfortunately, there was no crime for the attempted part. Hiruzen finally sighed. With the overwhelming evidence against, this charge is dropped also. There was no assault here either. Now let's get on with this final count so we can get this meeting over with. Just what has Naruto stolen, and from who? At this point, an elderly woman on the Hokage's left side stood up. Naruto recognized her as Kaharu Utatane. Her gray hair is pulled back in a twin bun, locked by a traditional Japanese hairpin with two pearls dangling off the side, wears a simple long kimono, closed by an obi, a jacket, and a sash over it. Her eyes are always squinting, barely opening her eyes at any point in time that Naruto has seen her. It has been reported that Uzumaki-san has stolen both a Kaiten fire jutsu and a training weapon from the Uchiha clan resources, the objects and jutsu in question. He blatantly used to destroy part of the academy training ground. It is asked that the weapon is returned and reparations are made for the jutsu stolen. On top of which extra charges be applied for destruction of Konoha Shinobi Academy resources. She stated, not missing a note. A few of the clan heads raised an eyebrow at that. Those were serious allegations. Stealing clan jutsu and property were serious offenses, and using them to destroy parts of the academy was also a punishable offense. A few looked to Naruto, whose fists were clenching as he looked to be furious with anger. This wasn't missed by the Hokage, whose eyes widened, realizing that Naruto knew only one Kaiten fire jutsu and only one weapon that could have done damage like that, and he was now livid also at what the Uchiha was claiming and that it was an outright lie. Naruto sighed as he released his anger, and then a slight smile came to his face. He was going to slam this back in their faces and make them eat it. "Oh, is that a fact, dear counselor?" Naruto said sweetly with a very creepy smile on his face. "Well, I'm sorry to say you have been blatantly lied to. Perhaps you should have checked your sources first, but then given your blatant hatred for me, it doesn't shock me that you jumped at the chance to try and have me punished for something that is so obviously a pack of lies." Naruto said in a sing-song act with a smile on his face that made a few of the clan heads blink and Hiruzen chuckle, knowing what was happening. "How dare you talk to me like that, brat? You will show the proper respect when addressing your betters, and how dare you call Uchiha-sama a liar when you are so blatantly flaunting the very weapon you stole?" She snapped, angered by Naruto. Naruto smiled. "Oh, you mean this?" he said as he took out the Bakken from his belt. "I'm afraid Uchiha team must be mistaken, this is mine." "Liar, such a weapon is obviously too powerful to belong to you and so must belong to Uchiha-sama," spoke the Haruno, who was desperately trying to yell. Naruto shrugged. "Well, perhaps I am wrong then," he said as he walked over and set the Bakken on the table, swirling it like it weighed nothing. "How about this? If the Uchiha team can lift my Bakken, he may have it." Naruto smiled. A few of the civilian counselors were grinning internally, thinking Naruto was a complete fool to give them this chance, as was Sasuke, who showed it outwardly. He would take the weapon and with it, its power, and then the council would have Naruto teach him that jutsu, and he would be even stronger. Sasuke grinned, walking over and reaching out for the Bakken on the table. He gripped it and went to lift, but as he did he found the Bakken didn't even budge. The thing weighed a literal ton. Sasuke took it in both hands and tried to lift. Nothing. He put his foot on the table. Still nothing. He was pulling as hard as he could, and still nothing. What the hell was going on? Sasuke kept pulling at the blade for the better part of 2 minutes, all the clan heads sweat dropping at the sight. Well, Tsume was rolling on the ground, laughing her ass off. Hiruzen couldn't help but smirk slightly, while all the civilian counselors looked on, confused as to what was going on. After another 10 seconds, Naruto had enough and mentally removed his permission to allow Sasuke to tough the Bakken, causing the practice blade to flare its stored chakra at the handle, throwing Sasuke back, his hands burned by the chakra. The civilian counselors were wide-eyed at that and immediately reacted. "How dare you attack the last Uchiha demon? He booby-trapped the blade. Arrests him." They began yelling, making Naruto sigh, shaking his head, but the yelling was stopped when the Hokage flared his kai. "That's enough." Naruto did nothing of the sort. He barked, getting their attention, and Naruto was right when he said, "You have been lied to, as all the facts stated are false." Danzo looked to Hiruzen. "I take it you have proof, then, Hokage-sama, of your claim?" Hiruzen nodded to Danzo. "I do. The Bakken is made of 100% pure and refined chakra metal, filtered and hardened to perfection, no flaws whatsoever. The entire process of refining the metal took 3 days and nights. The molding took another day and night before it was sharpened and polished for Naruto. He placed the order for it several days ago at Shinobi Arms, where Daichi Ashiro filled the order. Such a piece of craftsmanship cost 9,020,084 yen, which Daichi agreed to have paid off in weekly installments." A few of the clan heads blinked, hearing the process such a weapon would cost a lot, and the price was no shock to them, but what confused them was why Daichi would arrange for such a payment method, but none spoke up. "And, so you don't have to convert. 9,020,084 yen is about 50,000 British pounds or 75,000 US dollars. I was there when he placed the order and picked it up. I was also the one to apply the seals onto the piece to better its performance. That Bakken has no connection to the Uchiha clan whatsoever, and the claim that is complete rubbish." The civilian side of the council was completely furious. Not only had their plans been dashed, but their attempt to better the last Uchiha had been completely thrown on its head, but there was still the jutsu and the damage done to the training grounds. The Haru stood up. There is still the fact that he stole an Uchiha Kaiten fire jutsu and used it to destroy part of the academy training grounds for no good cause. Naruto chuckled at that statement, another blatant lie. Honest, you people really need to try something new or at least get better at lying. The Haru was about to speak when she was cut off by the Hokage. Naruto is right, he only possessed one Kaiten fire jutsu in his arsenal of jutsu, and it was not stolen, it was one of the 6 passed down to him as part of his parents' last wishes and has no connection to the Uchiha clan either, yet another lie. That statement got a few counselors' attention as Danzo spoke up. Hokage-sama, it was my belief that Uzumaki-san was an orphan and his parents were not known. Is that not still a fact? Hiruzen shook his head. No, his parents have always been known to me, but certain facts had left it that their identities have been declared an SS rank secret and I will not be divulging them as is my right as Hokage. You do not need to know, and so you will not be told. Only myself and Naruto know who his parents are, and you are not to ask. Doing so is violating shinobi law and is punishable by death for those who know not to ask. Do not push on this subject. He said, leaking killing intent, making all those in the room take his words very seriously. The Haru cleared her throat. Very well, but he's still. But this time Naruto cut her off. Oh, will you give it a rest already? You're about to say I still used it to destroy part of the academy training grounds for no reason, which is bullshit again. I used it with permission to demonstrate one of my jutsu, as it's currently the one I have the most control over. Haruka-sensei can verify this fact. And Hokage-sama can also verify that it was the same jutsu used as I asked for permission the day before to use it due to the restrictions placed on me during its use outside of practice. This got some raised eyebrows also on the clan head side of the room. The Hokage placing restrictions on a justice use was a rare occurrence indeed and sparked a few questions as Shikaku leant forward. Just out of curiosity, Uzumaki-san, what rank is this jutsu you know? For the Hokage to place such restrictions on you to do with its usage, what are the conditions of its use? Naruto smirked. It's not really shocking given its strength and my current non-shinobi status. The conditions state that I'm not to use it outside of practice or in any spar until I am genin rank, and in spars I am to keep its strength to a reasonable level. As for the justice rank, it's A rank, with the potential to reach SS rank if enough chakra is applied to it. In my training though I can push it to mid-S rank with protective barriers in place. Using it at the academy that time I toned it down to mid-C rank strength. This got a row of shocked looks from the clan side of the room. For an academy student to pull off such a jutsu was impossible, but then given that the boy was a Jinchuriki wasn't a stretch given how much power they contained, they could see why the Hokage had placed the restrictions as he had. Using a jutsu like in a spar before one became a shinobi would only be asking for trouble. Danzo's one eye was wide open hearing Naruto's words. Unlike the rest of the civilian side, he knew how justice were ranked, and a jutsu with the possibility to reach SS rank had the possibility to wipe out half the village in a single attack. At first he was all for some of the council's plans to have that jutsu taught to the Uchiha to better the village. But given the Uchiha's state of mind and the fact the jutsu was that powerful, such an act would only endanger the village, but it still doesn't mean he couldn't learn more about it. Danzo cleared his throat. This jutsu does sound very powerful, Uzumaki-san. I can see why it has such restrictions placed on it. Might I be so bold as to ask its name and its fundamental principles of performance? Naruto stroked his chin for a moment, thinking the request over, nodding slightly. I see nothing wrong with that request, but I would request that certain ears not be privy to such information, Naruto suggested as he gestured slightly to the emo and his pet monkey. Hiruzen nodded. I believe that would be wise also, he said before lifting his hand slightly as a signal as 2 Anbu appeared behind Sasuke and Sakura, quickly disappearing with them before they had a chance to protest. With a nod of thanks, Naruto continued. The technique is called Kasai Hakushu. Its general technique flows solely around that of chakra and elemental manipulation, storing up and compressing the Kaiten chakra into the palms of your hands, while at the same time building up a protective layer of chakra on your hands, so when the attack is released in the clap your hands aren't burned. It takes a few time to find the balance for the level of protection needed to keep your hand safe when using the jutsu too little, and your hand will get burned too much and you're wasting chakra, and that's never good in a long battle. Danzo stroked his chin. A jutsu that is completely chakra and elemental manipulation that requires no hand signs, just like the Yondame's Rasengan, which was a powerful jutsu indeed, and the fact that the boy could preform it was a testament to his skill already. Very impressive indeed. Thank you, Uzumaki-san. Naruto nodded to the old bandaged man, seeing he currently held no ill intent, but that could change, though his attention was quickly drawn by the elder Haruno again. Brat, you will teach the jutsu to Uchiha-sama, he should have that power, not you. She snapped angrily, not being able to yell. She was immediately fixed with a glare from the clan head side and the Hokage, and even from Dan's mid what she was saying, but that all stopped when Naruto snorted and began to laugh aloud. Ah ha 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 ha, that's rich, oh that is rich, you think you can order me to do anything, ha 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 ha, oh the irony of that sentence, you can't order me to do jack shit lady, and you know it. Naruto laughed, making the elder Haruno seething with rage. How dare you speak to me like that? I'm part of the council and you have to do as I say. She snapped angrily. Naruto shook his head along with that of the clan heads and the Hokage. Banshee-san, you are part of the advisory council, you advise the Hokage, you do not make demands, pass laws, give orders, or have any powers whatsoever. What you possess is a title, nothing more. The only people in this room who have such powers are the Hokage and clan heads. The Hokage runs the village and the clan heads run their clans, the civilian side does sweet fuck all. You are a bunch figureheads that give the illusion of power, a load of ugly ones at that. The only power you have is that of what you believe somehow have come to possess in your head. Naruto chuckled, sure some of you have a business and certain pull with others, but compared to the Hokage who actually runs the village you are nothing. Naruto said aloud, stating the facts as they were. This shocked most in the room. That fact was well known, that the council held no power, that only the Hokage did, that the council was only there to advise the Hokage about the many views so that he can make an informed decision, and the clan heads were his commanders in times of war, and in such times the civilian members weren't even privy to the meetings. Finally, Naruto sighed before heading to the door. Now since all of the matters concerning me have been dealt with, I believe I will be heading back to. Oh crap, Naruto said, looking at the clock. It was well past the time where the academy had ended and Naruto shook his head. Oh well, I guess the academy is out, I'll just head home. Oh, Iruka-sensei, just out of curiosity, where did I rank in the class ratings? Iruka smiled, top of the class Naruto, Sasuke took second after you, Hinata took first for the Kunoichi, with Ino taking second above Sakura due to her going further in the Taijutsu part than her, as this was just practical today, so congratulations. Naruto grinned and looked to the civilian side with a grin, told you so. Each of the civilians was livid at this, but dared not to voice their rejection in front of an already pissed off Hokage. Iruka then spoke again. But I think you might want to be careful going home, Naruto. There was an incident when class resumed and you weren't there, Iruka said with an embarrassed chuckle. Naruto blinked. Why, what happened? Iruka rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, I think you better ask Mitarashi-san about that. She was the one who tried to feed a large portion of the girls in your class to her rather large snake summons, while threatening to, and I quote, cut their tiny little titties off and ram them down their throats should they ever look at her man like that again. This got a blinking response from most of the listeners aside from a few. The elderly Hokage just sighed as he shook his head before tossing a small coin bag to Nico. You win this round, Nico-chan. The Nico Anbu smirked beneath her mask before pocketing the coin bag. As everyone sweat dropped at the obvious bet. Naruto just sweat dropped and shook his head before Tsume started rolling on the ground, laughing her ass off now. Ha 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 ha, that's what's called staking your claim, Naruto, you lucky bastard. Naruto smirked, you don't have to tell me that, but something tells me we've got Kiba to thank about her finding out. I was about to tell her when I was brought here, so he must have spilt the beans. Tsume smirked, oh, I'm giving him a week off for that. That was genius, I just wish I could have seen it. Naruto nodded, so do I. Well, I'd better get going, I've got a snake mistress to reward, he said before disappearing in a leaf shunshin, leaving them with their jaws on the floor and Tsume laughing her ass off. Chapter 7. The sun is shown in the window of the Naruto and Anko's bedroom, illuminating through the bamboo blinds as the two occupants of the room stirred from their slumber. Slowly Naruto opened his eyes as the sun's light shone in. He looked up at the ceiling and smiled, feeling Anko snuggling closer into his chest. It had been a feeling he had grown accustomed to over the past 4 years. Yes, 4 years they had been together now, and they were as happy as they could ever be. Anko had graduated from the academy 2 years earlier, and she was now a Chunin after passing her Chunin exams her first time, and she was thrilled, given that she and her teammates hated each other. It had been a miracle they had lasted in the field as long as they did. Now she was happy as a peach with her position in the T&I department. She signed on as soon as she became a Chunin. They were required to pick a department to sign on to one of the divisions of the Shinobi Corps. The frontline, trackers, T&I, medical, specialist or Anbu. Naruto just sighed contently as he wrapped his arm around Anko and pulled her closer to him before kissing her forehead. Good morning, Haim, he whispered to her with a smile. She smiled, her eyes still closed. Good morning, Foxy-kun. Naruto smirked as his right hand trailed down her bare back and slipped into her boxer short pajama bottoms and underwear, gripping her peach ass cheek, earning a moan out of the snake charmer as her eye finally opened, giving Naruto a very seductive look. Very frisky this morning, aren't you? She whispered as she kissed his bare chest that was chiseled hard from the years of training and intense practice sessions. You excited about today? You can finally become a shinobi. Naruto palmed her ass cheeks before giving them a firm squeeze, making Anko gasp, "Yay I am, but what I'm looking forward to the most is finally being able to show you how much I love you after I pass," he said in a husky low voice into her ear, making her bite her lower lip as she felt herself get wet at just his words. Due to the laws, anyone under the age of 18 wasn't legal in that respects, as they are considered civilians. The only exception to that law was if they became shinobi. Once a genin, they were fair game and free to live as they like, they were considered adults, which is one of the reasons the third Hokage had changed the graduating age of the academy all those years ago. So everyone was 16 coming out of the academy, and roughly 18 by Chunin and 21 by Jinin. It used to be they came out at 12 or younger before making Chunin by the time they were 14, and then either Jinin by 19 or they were dead, but that was the life of a shinobi. That makes two of us, Naru-kun. Anko moaned as Naruto rubbed her ass more and more. The mornings were always so fun, he would tease her, and they would just lay there and hold each other, just lusting for more. It was torture, but they would soon see it over. Slowly Naruto's ministrations of Anko's ass cheeks came to an end, much to her displeasure, as he slowly got up, giving her a very nice view. Over the years of training, Naruto had really bulked up. He had always tried his best to look after his body even before the academy, but now he looked like a proper hunk, sporting a six-pack and no scarring, compliments of his fast healing. His body was pristine and the picture of an Adonis, enough to make any girl wet just by the sight of him without his shirt. He was currently wearing only his pajama slacks and smirking, hearing Anko lick her lips, looking at him as he stretched as he got out of bed. "Oh, I just can't wait to get a hold of that body. Hurry up and pass already so I can have you already," Anko whined playfully, making Naruto chuckle. "Patience my Haim, I'll have you soon enough, and I'll make it worth the wait," he growled with a smirk, making her quiver under the sheets with anticipation before she got out. "You had better," she said with a smirk as she threw off the covers. Over the past 4 years she had filled out nicely. Training alongside Naruto had done its part too. She had filled out in all the right places, and not an ounce more. She had perfect skin and a killer body. She had D-cup breast and hips to match, and an ass that Naruto loved to slap when she shook it, teasing him constantly. And she always came back for more. She was wearing a small loose vest, top stopping just above her belly button, and very small pajama shorts, showing off her long legs and making her look even sexier. She had kept her hair the same length, short around her fronts, with the longer back tied up in a bushy ponytail. She got out of bed and did her stretches, also making Naruto smirk as she stretched up, her top only just covering her bust as she did so. Naruto started to the closet to pull on his clothes for that day. "Better get dressed, Anko-chan, today should prove to be a good show." Anko smiled. "Goody, I can't wait to see you put the team in his place again," she said as she came over and wrapped her arms around his waist. "If only I was a Junin, then I could request to have you as a student, and then we could have loads of fun with that little idea," she said before blowing on Naruto's ear, making him smirk. "But Anko-chan, you know how it's you who loves getting spanked. You even bought that schoolgirl outfit in paddle for when I became Genin," Naruto teased. Anko blinked. "No, I did." Anko started but then stopped, realizing what he was getting at. "You didn't?" she then said excitedly. Naruto grinned like a fox. "Yep, we are going to be having lots of fun." Anko blushed red just imagining what was going to happen later on. He knew all her little fantasies, and she knew all of his. Now normally she would be pushing for dominance, but with Naruto that wasn't an option. As her best friend Hana would say, he was alpha, and that was final. It wasn't a secret that they were a couple. Anko had told her two best friends, those she had anyway. Hana Inyazuka and Kurenaiki, and they had both given their blessings. Hana was Chunin like her, and had been Nikga's student when she was a Junin. Hana had never pushed for anything higher than Chunin, though everyone knew her potential. Well, Kurenai had been lucky enough to earn a promotion to Junin just a few weeks ago, so she would be getting a team come selection time. Both were a few years older than her, but best friends nonetheless. Both friends had seen Naruto and Anko together outside of training and put it together, and she had confessed to them. There had been months of teasing, and there was still the odd jibe, but not that often. Hana was mostly like her mother Tsume, brash, and was the first to have asked had they done it yet, and Kurenai has passed out with a blush. Quickly coming back to reality, Anko smiled even more before kissing Naruto's cheek before walking away, shaking her hips. "Hurry up and become a genin already so you can bend me over. I had better be mounted and fucked senseless within the hour of you getting your headband, or I'm going to give you the worst case of blue balls in the history of ever." Naruto chuckled at the threat as he pulled on his shirt. "Don't have to tell me twice, Haim. I had already planned to." Scene break. Naruto walked down the street to the academy, knowing he had plenty of time as he recalled the past 4 years that had been the best years of his life. First he had met his girlfriend, Anko-chan, who loved him and he loved her. He had found out why he had been treated the way he had, and he had grown stronger for it. He found out he was from 2 clans. But she planned on bringing back even if he didn't see it in his lifetime, and what made it better was that Anko didn't have a problem sharing him. She knew he was going to bring his clan back, and in order to do that he needed multiple wives. As much as she would want to attempt to fill those roles by herself, she knew she couldn't. But she would settle for being the head girl in his soon-to-be harem. The day he would become a shinobi, and he knew he would become one easy. He had spent the past 4 years in extreme training, under both Ikgao-sensei and Heiichi-sensei, and at his request, they ran him into the ground each and every time. For course, due to his healing factor, he was fine the next morning after a good night's sleep and 6 bowls of ramen with side orders of dango. He had become extremely strong over the past 4 years, although he never nearly used all his strength and had put measures in place to limit himself when out of training. These were the weight and restriction seals he had on his body since he started training all those years ago. He had now increased them all to the extreme. He found his body could adjust after just a few days. A cane that informed him it was his healing factor at work again. As he strained his muscles, they healed and became stronger for it. This resulted in him having to increase his weights every week to get the same results. Now he was currently walking around with 3,000 pounds on each of his limbs and then 5,000 on his chest for a total of 17,000 pounds total. On top of that, he had also upped his restriction seal twice in the 4 years. He was now walking around with it set at level 4, which was like pushing through quicksand, and he had kept these weight and restrictions on all the time and never took them off in public, so no one really knows how strong and fast he is. He knew he could just up the weights more and increase the restriction seal again, but he had left it be as he didn't see the point in upping it as he didn't need the extra training. He was getting plenty of that. In the past 4 years he had learned each of his clan's jutsu, and they were just as powerful as the first, and had the same restrictions on them as it. When the Hokage had seen their strength, it looked as if he was going to have a heart attack, and Naruto could clearly see why they were Uzumaki-style techniques. He could only use them about 20 times at full power before he reached his limit. While regular jutsu, he could fire off over 100 and not feel the drain. They were indeed extremely powerful. He could have easily learned more that were stored in his family's scroll in the Hokage's office, but he had opted against that and only learned the Kenjutsu and Taijutsu forms, thinking out if all the ninjutsu were as powerful as the first 5. Then he still couldn't use them outside of training till he graduated, so there wasn't any point in learning them yet. As such, he had put more time into advancing his Kenjutsu and Taijutsu to the point where he could easily take on both his senseis at the same time for 3 hours straight while he had his seals activated. Speaking of seals, Naruto's skill in them had increased as well. He had completed the next 3 scrolls in the series and was currently reviewing them before starting the 7th volume. Book 4. Intermediate 1 covered extra large explosive tags, small chakra suppression seals, medium chakra storage seals, and even specific nature chakra storage seals, C rank strengthening and reinforcement seals, and it covered how to link 4 seals together in an array for different results. After which the Hokage gave Naruto a gift which was Kenjutsu Language 101. It explained the whole Kenjutsu structure and helped Naruto to understand the seals better and allowed him to start experimenting with some of his own seals, under the supervision of course he was still learning. Book 5. Intermediate 2 covered extra large explosive tags, medium chakra suppression seals, extra large chakra storage seals, and large specific nature chakra storage seals, B rank strengthening and reinforcement seals, and it showed how to increase a seal array by 1. Adding the extra features of showing how to create a prisoner capture scroll that would serve as easy means of transportation for any enemy shinobi or the like he captured alive on mission. One thing Naruto was happy to learn was he finally started to learn how to use barrier seals. Even if it was weak level ones, he quickly applied them to his apartment so that no civilian had a hope of entering. Book 6. Intermediate 3 covered XXXL explosive tags, which had the potential to blow up an entire building with just one of them, large chakra suppression seals. It had started on how to chain chakra storage seals as a way to increase their capacity, up to 3 seals at this point, along with XL specific chakra storage seals and A rank strengthening and reinforcement seals. And it showed how to increase a sealing array by 1 for 6. Seeing Naruto had advanced so much, Hiruzen decided to give him one of the books his father had written, Kenjutsu and Combat 101. Naruto read that book 100 times over by now, and it was the main reason he had yet to move on to the other scrolls. There was just so much in it to learn, and on top of that, he had begun his own side project in secret for his own combat seals, making him even more lethal, but at his current level, the seals were still months if not years away from completion. He had found another book on trigger seals which he knew would be brilliant for his pranks that he could activate from afar and never get caught. There was also the section in the scroll that covered weak paralyzing tags that paralyzed its target for 5 minutes when applied and activated, which he knew would come in handy eventually. Naruto had even increased the level of his barrier strength, doubling its strength. Even Anko was caught off guard by it until she resorted to using her summons to break it. It was still weak but served his purpose of deterring any disgruntled civilians. The rest of his skills had grown to match the rest of his body, as both his senseis had graded him to be at least high Jinin on all his skills, except for Jinjutsu. He could never get that down, even with all the time he put into his chakra control. The small amounts of chakra required in Jinjutsu are impossible for Naruto to draw out on their own. Needless to say, the Hokage had predicted that and so didn't count that into his training at all, although due to him possessing the kekkei in him, he could never be put under Jinjutsu, which made up for his lack of skill in that area. Throughout the entire academy years, Naruto had been graded by both his academy instructors and his two senseis, and the Hokage had been watching during exam classes for any trickery. When it came to the final results, after 5 attempts at screwing with Naruto, Mizuki had been removed from the class as the assistant and sent on near-permanent border patrol, which kept him out of the village 11 of every 12 months of the year, and Ikgao had been asked to take over on her off time, which she had accepted. Naruto had only been too thrilled about that. And now Naruto was on his way to the academy for the graduation exam, which if he remembered from his lessons, will consist of 3 parts, a written exam, a target range test, and finally performing the academy 3 basic jutsu, and any 2 jutsu of your own for extra marks. Teams would then be decided based on the score sheets of the combined exams. You had to get about 50% to pass. Which Naruto though was ridiculous, but there it was, he knew he could easily ace it all in his sleep. Naruto had taken his time to get to the academy today. Normally he would have just shunshin there to save time, but he just wanted to take his time today as he strolled through the gates of the academy with plenty of time to spare. Walking into the classroom, him and Kiba share a look and a smirk, knowing today would be a walk in the park for them both. With Naruto as a sparring partner, Kiba had doubled if not tripled his training. It had been a shocker, seeing the training methods Naruto had used in private, and even more of a shock when Naruto had told him about his status as Jinchuriki and Akane's gender. But he dare not let his shock show, lest both his older sister and mother kick his ass for the act. Coming into the room, he could feel more eyes on him than he had the first day he had entered. This had been mostly due to the fact that his status as last of the Uzumaki clan had been revealed 2 years ago, and it only had caused his popularity to soar through the roof due to the possibility of him falling in the craw later in life. Flashback. Naruto leaned forward in his chair with his sketchbook and brush in hand as he worked through some new seal designs with non-chakra mixed ink so that the seal wouldn't activate. He was still trying to work out the interior structure that would hold the array together and allowed him to swap between the different seals faster. It had been his private project for the past 3 months. But he was still having trouble with it. Iruka didn't mind Naruto working on his own stuff during class, as he would often toss Naruto random questions about what he was talking about out of the blue, and Naruto would answer them fully without a problem. The blonde was an enigma that Iruka was happy to leave to his own inner working. That, and he had been briefed that his new classroom assistant was one of Naruto's instructors outside of class, so if it was something he didn't already know, she would call him to pay attention. Right now they were covering the basics of Jinjutsu, and Iruka had been explaining about how it required delicate chakra control. When Shikamaru's hand went up, this was a slight shock because the Nara normally slept through class as he passed every test with what Iruka suspected was carefully calculated marks, so it was strange to see him taking an interest in a lesson. Yes, Shikamaru-san, what is it? Shikamaru rubbed the back of his head lazily. I'm just curious, sensei, when will we be covering the more advanced stuff, like what Naruto mentioned on the first day of term last year? All we've covered for the past year and a half is the 3 jutsu basics, on top of some other troublesome lessons. When are we going to learn about the likes of Kenjutsu? From what I've read, being able to make your own tags in the middle or before a fight might come in handy. This got Naruto's attention as both he and Ikgao smirked. Iruka just sighed as the question. The academy only covers the 3 basics of being a shinobi and other information you might need on the field. Such skills like Naruto's Kenjutsu and Genjutsu are both advanced skills that you can learn after you become a shinobi, or you take an interest and learn yourself through special channels with skilled instructors, Iruka explained. Then Sakura decided to voice her opinion, but then how does that blonde baka know all about Fukin whatever and not the rest of us, especially Sasuke-kun? What makes that baka so special? She said, wanting to yell, but her seal was active. Iruka frowned hearing Sakura insult Naruto. It's because Naruto has taken the time of his own to learn those skills to better himself for when he becomes a shinobi, skills that could very well save his life. Sakura, you would do best to take an example and do the same. Sakura was going to reply but thought better and bit her tongue before doing so. Sasuke, on the other hand, wasn't so clever. Whatever, they're useless skills developed by a bunch of worthless nobodies as an excuse or attempt to fake real power. No wonder they aren't even taught in the academy. What a joke. Hearing that, Ikao's and Iruka's eyes widened, knowing who the creators of Kenjutsu were, and were both about to reprimand Sasuke for the comment when a snap was heard from the back of the class where Naruto sat. Both instructors looked up to see the brush Naruto had been using was snapped in half under his grip, which had no doubt been a result of what Sasuke had said, as the emo had unknowingly just insulted the entire Uzumaki clan. Hibba looked to his friend, curious as to why Naruto suddenly just got so pissed off. Normally it would take something a lot more than Sasuke saying a few words to get under Naruto's skin, but at this time he wasn't aware of Naruto's status, and only 4 people were: Ikao, Anko, Hade and the Hokage. Slowly Naruto set down the remains of the brush before taking a deep breath to calm himself before raising his hand. Iruka blinked at the action before speaking. "Yes, Naruto, is there something you would like to ask?" Naruto nodded. "Hi sensei, I would like to ask as to when the history of Uzushiogakure comes up in the history lessons, and if it would be possible to have it now, for the benefit of my less informed peers." Iruka's eyes widened hearing that. Naruto. Are you saying that you? Iruka started but then stopped, seeing the look in Naruto's eyes. It was steadfast, he knew alright. Naruto did know, he had had his clones read up on Yuzu, as he wanted to find out all he could about this mother's clan. He had even asked the Hokage to tell him what he knew and not leave anything out, and he had. Naruto knew everything, and that was why he was so infuriated by Sasuke's words. Iruka nodded understanding before closing the textbook and walking around his table and sitting on its front. "Alright then, I suppose we can take a quick lesson detour. We're not supposed to cover this till next year, but considering the circumstances and the curiosity, we'll cover it now," Iruka said as he took off his flat jacket, much to every student's confusion. Shikamaru glanced at Naruto. What did this Yuzu have to do with Kenjutsu? The Nara may have been lazy, but one thing he didn't like was being left in the dark, and Naruto's reaction to Sasuke's words, and now this mention of this village, had piqued his interest. "I don't suppose anyone here other than Naruto has even heard of Yuzu, have you?" Iruka asked aloud. There were a few turned heads, seeing if anyone had. That just made Naruto's hands clench in slight anger and Iruka sigh in regret. "That's extremely regrettable, because during the first and second Shinobi Wars, Yuzu was Konoha's greatest ally, and it's because of Yuzu that Konoha is still standing today." This got a few wide eyes in shock to think that Konoha owed such a debt to another village, and they never even knew. Yuzu was a relatively small village, about a week's travel outside of the walls of Konoha, across the ocean. On a scale it was probably about 1/5 the size of Konoha, so it's no surprise some have forgotten it given its end. But its end is precisely the reason Konoha will never forget, Yuzu, Iruka said with a sad frown. It was in the middle of the Second Great War. When things were at their grimmest for the Konoha, we had been hit by multiple attacks, we had fended them off, but we were still getting our breath back after the last. When word came of a combined assault on the village from both Kumo and Iwa, we could only have lasted another 2 days of battery before we broke. We wouldn't have been ready in time when the attack hit. It was at this time that Yuzu heard of the attack also. They were smaller, but their shinobi were some of the skilled in their arts anywhere in the elemental nations. Their skill in Kenjutsu and their use in battle were unmatched. The entire village rallied around a single clan. That clan was the Uzumaki clan. At that moment every student's eyes widened, and everyone looked to Naruto, who didn't move, who just kept looking straight forward. Iruka took that as his cue to go on. The Uzumaki clan's roots in both Yuzu and here in Konoha run deep. It was one of the 3 founding clans of this village, mentioned in both the same prestige as both the Senju and the Uchiha, Iruka said firmly. Sasuke's eyes widened. "What? That dope is from a clan, and it has ties to mine." The Uchiha actually took interest for half a second before rolling his eyes. "A dead clan, a dead and worthless clan. They were lucky to be even spoken in the same breath as mine. In fact, the wife of the first Hokage was one Mito Uzumaki, if that rings any bells with anyone, which it should." Iruka said, standing up. The Uzumakis held loyalty and family above all. When they heard of Konoha's need, they dispatched the main body of their shinobi forces to make the trip to Konoha to aid us. 150 Uzumaki shinobi, each a master of Kenjutsu. Along with different level of Kenjutsu and extremely powerful elemental jutsu. This action, however, turned out to be their undoing, Iruka said as in a sad tone. Every eye opened and Iruka was about to continue when Naruto spoke out. "It was a 2-pronged trap attack," Naruto said aloud, making everyone look to him. "Only a third of the total attack was aimed at Konoha. It's a 7-day trip from here to Yuzu. They were 5 days out when news reached of a force twice as big would be descending on Yuzu in 4 days, and the smaller force would hit Konoha in a day and a half." Then Ikao spoke up. Most would have expected the 150 to turn and run back to defend their own village, but they didn't. Instead they sent a single shinobi squad back to Yuzu with plans on what to do, while the main force continued on to Konoha. They ran all day and all night and made it just in time to meet the smaller force head on alongside our own shinobi. The battle was bloody and lasted for several straight hours, but as soon as the battle ended, forces of Yuzu turned on their heels and started running again. Not a single Uzumaki entered the village, they didn't stop for thanks or rest, they turned and started running back to Yuzu. But what was the point? Asked Shimjai. Yuzu would have been destroyed by the time they got back. Everyone nodded in agreement, but Iruka shook his head. Everyone said that as well, that it couldn't be done, that Yuzu was lost, but that didn't stop them. In what should have been a week trip on foot, they did in 2 days. There was a resounding gasp from the entire class. 7 days distance in just 2 days, that's insane. Naruto, your clan is kick-ass. Yelled Kiba, making Naruto smirk. Indeed they were. They met the larger force head-on, exhausted. 100 plus Uzumakas versus 5,000 Iwa Shinobi and 5,000 Kumo, Haruka said in a grim tone. There was silence in the entire class. That's 1 to 100 odds. There was no way. The battle lasted 3 days. There was a resounding gulp throughout the class. With their mastery of Kenjutsu, their village's defenses and the last of the shinobi, they fought the enemy head-on for the entire battle. 3 days and nights straight. Such is the willpower and steadfast determination of an Uzumaki. When Konoha heard of the attack, we went to their aid as well and made it there in 4 days, arriving sadly too late to save Yuzu. There was a cold air in the classroom hearing of their village's allies being lost, and they had been too late to help them. In the end, all we could do was chase off the remains of the scattered attacking forces from destroying Yuzu further. The last 2,000 of them. Haruka said with a slight smirk. Everyone's eyes widened hearing that, and Naruto couldn't help but give a small grin. The 100 Uzumakis had demolished 8,000 enemy shinobi. Everyone listening was speechless at that level of strength. Then Haruka lifted up his flat jacket, showing the red swirl on the back. This is why every Chunin and Junin flat jacket bears this red swirl crest. It is the symbol of the Uzumaki clan. Although theirs is white, we wear it in red in remembrance of our failure to help out allies like they did for us. Everyone remembered seeing the same mark on the back of Naruto coat above the kanji he had on it. Everyone thought it had just been a design, never a clan symbol. Then Ino raised her hand. But sensei, how do we know all this when you said our forces arrived too late? Haruka smiled a bit. It's because in the end the Uzumaki head, Mamoru Uzumaki, put a plan into place when they received word of the second attack. It was because of that plan that allowed the Uzumaki blood to live on. Haruka looked to Naruto. Ryoji-sama sent the team with instructions to return to Yuzu and begin the evacuation of all the civilians in Yuzu and to use the seals in place to pull together all the clan resources into the special storage vault scroll and sent it off with his daughter Maika-san, Kushina Uzumaki, the clan's next head. Using hidden passageways, she came out on the other side of Yuzu just when the battle was starting. She hid for the entire time the battle was taking place while the rest of the civilian populace was being evacuated, the whole future of Yuzu resting on her shoulders. When the battle ended, she revealed herself to the Konoha forces and they took her to safety, Naruto said with a slight smile. Ikao stepped forward. It was a special seal placed on the walls of Yuzu and a special seal on Mamoru Uzumaki that transferred his memories of the battle to a storage scroll that Kushina opened, and that is how we know what happened. Sadly, though, Kushina passed away during the Kyubi attack 13 years ago, leaving Naruto here as the last of the once great Uzumaki clan and rightful heir to Yuzu. Naruto nodded to Ikao as he sat back down, taking out a new brush. Next time, Ichiha, think before you speak ill about someone's techniques. It was the Kenjutsu of my clan that protects this village. It's my clan's seal that powers the protective walls of Konoha. It's my clan who designed the reinforcement seals on each and every house in Konoha to keep them standing in attacks. My clan who designed the matrix used in the medical seals used in the village hospital. Without my clan's Kenjutsu, without my clan period, Konoha wouldn't have lasted through the Second Shinobi War. Flashback ended. That day Kiba's respect for Naruto had gone even higher. It had also been later that day that Naruto had told Kiba about a cane, which only pissed him off, realizing why the civilians had been looking at Naruto like they had and only served to make him want to rip their throats out for their stupidity. Of course, it was the next day that his fan base increased and that he had noticed that Ino had started blushing when she was around him like Hinata did. Naruto had been no fool, he knew what that meant, but he wasn't sure on either of their reasonings for their feelings, whether it was for him they love him or for the power it would bring their clans. Naruto wouldn't be making any move until he was sure. Naruto simply walked up and took his seat beside Kiba, giving the dog boy a bro fist with a grin. You ready to ace this, Naruto? Kiba grinned. Naruto smirked, do you even have to ask? I've been ready for the past 4 years, and he wasn't kidding. Today he would become a shinobi and finally start his dream, that and get laid within an hour of getting his headband or lose his balls by slow torture, courtesy of his slightly crazy girlfriend. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the next part, don't forget to turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Please like, subscribe, and comment below to let me know your thoughts. Check out my other videos for more content you might enjoy. Until next time, take care.